You one day in a little toy shop, buy a pack of balloons with the money we got, set them free at the break of dawn, till one by one they were gone. Back at base, bugs in the software flash the message, something's out there, floating in the summer sky. 99 red balloons go by. It's red alert, there's something here from somewhere else. The war machine springs to life, opens up one eager eye, focusing it on the sky where 99 red balloons go by. 99 Decision Street, where 99 ministers meet to worry, super scurry, call the troops out in a hurry. This is what we've waited for, this is it boys, this is war. The president is on the line as 99 red balloons go by. Nights of the year, right? Super high-tech jet fighters. Everyone's a superhero. Everyone's a Captain Kirk, with orders to identify, to clarify and classify. Scramble in the summer sky as 99 red balloons go by. As 99 red balloons go by. 99 dreams I have had, in every one a red balloon. It's all over and I'm standing pretty in this dust that was a city. If I could find a souvenir just to prove the world was here, and here is a red balloon, I cry for peace and let it go.
If we were but 100, then by the sweat of our labour, and the strength of our will, and the force of our minds, we could forget the old battles, know those days are over, that hatred corrupts and friendship refines. We could be nations proud of our heritage, with an eye to the future and a heart to forgive, if we could just be rid of those bigots and fools who will not let live and let live. We could govern our countries wisely and fairly, let each man and woman work with a will. We could flourish secure in the knowledge that we reap our own harvest and wring our own till. If we were but 100, then through unity and courage, and the strength of our will and the force of our minds, we could rid ourselves of those bigots and fools who only seek to corrupt and never to refine. We could once again be known for our kind hospitality, as a hand that is openly proffered to friends, as a hard-working people proud and unbending. We could thrive and win out in the end. Well, hello and welcome to the Lone Gunman, without the Lone Gunman. But I am joined by Glenn and by Kia, and there is a lot, and I mean a lot, to talk about. So, how are you doing this afternoon, guys? How are you doing, Kia?
Got to say I'm okay. I'm doing quite well today. It was a pleasant day for driving at work. Got to see the countryside, some sunshine. Managed to get back in time for the show, which is good. So generally, I'm fit, healthy. I spent a week playing some golf, catching up with family and friends, dinners and a day out and all that. So I'm feeling refreshed today. So on we go.
Excellent. And Glenn, how are you doing?
No, we'll gloss over that.
Okay.
Moving on. We'll talk about something else. Very, 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 very disappointing result, which I'm not going to go into. But apart from that, I'm pretty fit and chipper, and looking forward to this show.
Okay. Well, it's good to be back with you, and wherever you're joining us from in the world, come on in and settle down, and we will get to it. Now, the introduction wasn't mine, by the way. I did alter it slightly to make it more international, because I know we do have an international audience, but it does come from an old chorus song. But I felt it was relevant, and this is where I want to start today. And it is going to be with a bit of a rant, I'm not going to lie. But I wake up in the morning, like I've said before, my alarm's set on BBC Scotland, not because it tells me any truth, but because it makes me so angry that I actually get up rather than sit there listening to it, because I can only take about 20 minutes at most before it gets slammed off and we get up for the day. But after that, I've got a tendency, like I'm sure most of us end up nowadays, in scrolling through shit on Facebook. And this was the first thing that caught my eye today. Now, this is from Rupert Lowe, shows how much attention I paid to the guy. And this is the new fucking Restore party. And this is his post, just in case you can't read that on your phone. I've been pushing for information from the Home Office on how many Gazan migrants who were allowed into the country for free NHS treatment have now claimed asylum. I'm told by the Minister that requested information on asylum claims from individuals who entered the UK under the Gaza Medical Evacuation Scheme is not available from published statistics. Keep it published statistics. They know exactly how many Gazans have immediately claimed asylum, but are refusing to tell us. It's a scandal. It will be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. Claim asylum, become refugees, live on benefits for the rest of their lives. Brilliant. What a great deal for us that is. Restore Britain's position is clear. We must not accept a single migrant from Gaza. Not one. Well, you fucking loathsome, racist piece of shit, Rupert. Go fuck yourself and grow a pair. Because maybe, just maybe, if we didn't send bomb after bomb, weapon after weapon, troop after troop, and you've only got to listen to the Ministry of Defence on how we are standing with our allies and how we sent choppers and how we sent planes to support our allies or defend our allies, to know how much we are backing Israel's genocide. And it is a fucking genocide. So I'm sorry, but maybe if we stopped backing Israel, maybe if we started actually backing the Palestinians' right, the Gazans' right to live and stay living in their own country, and living being the key bit. You like your key bits? Living being the key bits, not being slaughtered, not being massacred, not being destroyed and driven out of their homes, then maybe they wouldn't be coming here. And you're not stupid. You can play naive as much as you want. You fucking know damn well as I do, or you should fucking know damn well, there's no such thing as an illegal immigrant. It's a misnomer. It's a deliberate lie. It's ingenuous. It's ingenuous, one, because you cannot claim asylum without being in the country. And it's ingenuous, two, because you have to get into the country and you cannot do that legally for the purposes of claiming asylum. Now, I'm sorry, but it's very, very simple. Or it's very, very simple to me. You don't want Gazans coming here? Stop supporting Israel, just driving them from their land. Stop doing that, and they might not need to come here because they don't want to be here, or they might be relieved to be here if they've had no choice, but they don't want to be here. They want to be in Palestine. It's Israel that you're supporting. It's your fucking paymasters that have driven them from that land. And it's disingenuous because you're not bothered about the Ukrainians coming in, the Ukrainians staying here. When that doesn't bother you, that the Ukrainians come in here with full allowance, but it bothers you that the Palestinians are, then that's one word for that, and that's fucking racism. Clear and fucking simple. You loathsome, sick piece of shit. Yeah, sorry, I'm in a bit of a mood with this guy at this moment. And let me make it clear. Let me calm down for a second and then we'll bring the guys in. But there's nothing wrong with being concerned about immigration. But we need to keep things clear and we need to use the right language and understand the way the system works, because you can't legally enter to claim asylum. It's just not in the system. So there's nothing wrong with being concerned about it. But we need to accept that most of what we've seen in immigration over the last decades has been internal migration. What do I mean by that? I mean that most of immigration for the last decades was from EU countries. And I'm not saying it was all bad either. But the whole they're taking our jobs attitude, well, maybe British people didn't in general ought to be quite so lazy. And then they wouldn't. Maybe you should look at your own work ethic. But there is good and there is bad immigration. And in some ways, Ian touched on it on Friday night, because it's about integration. It's about integrating as part of the community, not trying to take it over and turn it into what you've left. But that pattern, that's all often portrayed on the people coming here desperate for a better life. But that pattern fits much more clearly into things like the expat community in Spain than it does in people fleeing from Gaza. Now, I'm sorry, it's when it's blamed on them, it's disingenuously applied. It's seen much more commonly wherever the butcher's apron likes to fly. It tends to come to rule. But we don't have time to get into colonialism again. We've done it so many times on a Man in Black show. And I don't really want to get into the whole immigration debate. But my point here is the narrative building. And that narrative building is anti-Gaza, anti-Palestine, and by extension, anti-Lebanon, anti-Iran. It's a Zionist narrative, and it's being built over and over again. And I'm sorry, it's being built and it's being spread in this tweet by racist, loathsome pieces of shit. So your thoughts on that, Kia? And you can disagree with me if you wish.
Well, that's a fair intro I've got to say there, Alex. Just what I've got here just now. I mean, you're quite right. Bombing all these countries, what's it going to cause? You're displacing millions and millions of people. Where are they going to go? And they usually end up trekking across Europe. And because of our benefit system, they usually end up trying to get here, which is fair enough, right? I mean, if you're trying to look after people that are being bombed and starved and forced out of their countries, I think, yeah, I'm all for that, right? Absolutely. But like, what are the actions? Why are the leaders doing this? So do we have disingenuous leaders, is what I would say. And what are the actual motivations behind it? I mean, I'm living up here in Aberdeen, and if I got bombed out of my, I mean, what have I done, right? You know what I mean? I'd be like, wait a minute, I didn't vote for any of this. I didn't, like, why are they targeting my block of flats or whatever, right? Because they think maybe there's someone in here they don't like, right? That'll be part of me gone, right? And so if these leaders are disingenuous, and this is part of the standing for peace, I mean, how is this, what I see going on, right? Just generally, is how is this bringing peace to the world? I mean, like I've said before, I know everybody I know would rather stand for peace than fight for war, right? But it's these higher uppers that are dragging us all into this quagmire. It's unbelievable. And you think the price of all these bombs and all these warplanes and all the fuel they've got to use and the transport and the troops and whatever. And then once they've done that, they've displaced a whole, almost, I was going to say civilization, but you know what I mean, a culture, let's say. And then so they will come across to us because they need support and help and somewhere to live and food and shelter, the basic needs of human life. And that then rebounds on to us with rising costs throughout the economy, rising costs in the NHS, unavailable appointments for, let's say, naturalised Brits, like not being racist at all, whatever. And of course, our benefit bills going through the roof. So it's like we're paying on one hand to displace these people, then paying on another to make sure they've got somewhere safe to go. It's, to me, it's a little bit nuts.
Yeah. And we are, in many ways, we are paying twice in that sense. But the other bit that's, I didn't pull him up on, that's about the, I did pull him up when I wrote on his reply to his post, but I didn't on here before, because the whole benefits thing is crap. The bit he ignores again is that they're not allowed to they're not allowed to work. They're not allowed to get a job while they are being processed. Mm. And the British system is stupidly slow at actually processing these people. That's where the problem comes. Not anything else. It's the fact that we don't process them. We don't make that decision quick enough or with any expediency. We just let it drag on. And in the meantime, the taxpayer is paying for it, though he's not paying the figures that people quote. People quote £50 a week and all your meals. No, if you get all your meals in a hotel, you get £8 something a week, not 50. The 50 is if you're paying for all your own food and accommodation even. I can't get my words out. But like I said, I don't want to get into that. It's the way he's targeting this at Gaza. It's the way he's targeting it at Israel's enemies, if you like. And that is very obvious. But anyway, I'm waffling on again. Let's have your take on it, Glenn.
Yeah, when I saw this, when you pointed this out to me, a lot of kind of thoughts crossed my mind, because in many ways, this is a simple, but in the same breath, a very complex situation, because we have a moral duty to take care of these people. These people are genuine refugees. If anyone at all deserves refuge in our country, it's the Palestinians. Because they are refugees from a genocide. Not only are they refugees from a genocide, but they are refugees from a genocide that we helped to commit.
Yes.
And you could argue that by taking them in, we are aiding that genocide, because this is what Israel wants. It wants to rid itself of the Palestinians. So you could have that, you could put that argument forward. But that's not the argument and not the angle that Rupert Lowe has chosen to argue this on. Lowe is appealing to the base instincts of his supporters. Firstly, what is quite plainly and openly anti-Muslim hatred. And then this whole benefit scrounging idea. not a word has been said about you, like you said, about Ukrainian refugees coming here. They're white European Christians for the most part, so obviously they're welcome, aren't they? But let's get one thing absolutely clear. Gazans are not coming here to leech off of our benefit system. They're the very definition, they are the very definition of refugees from a devastated country. What Lowe is trying to suggest, and this is not in his writings, but if you read between the lines, what he's trying to suggest is that if we take them in, then they will become troublesome. Yeah, exactly in the way that Israel thinks of them as troublesome. Without actually kind of saying it, he's sort of saying, well, if we let them in, they're gonna get ready for another October 7th, aren't they? Because all Gazans are indeed Muslims, and all Muslims are basically terrorists. This is the part that's not being said. The refugees coming to Britain are Gazan, and it's in his own writings there. These people are Gazan medical evacuees. They are the injured and the sick. They're men and women and children who have suffered because of Israel's genocide. And any right-thinking, moral person would not stand against them coming here. Which obviously they're not doing this by choice. They're not coming here by choice. Because they're coming here because of a desperate reality. And it's a reality that should never have been allowed to happen in the fucking first place. So I absolutely agree with you, Alex, in every respect that that Rupert Lowe is a racist bigot who is basically just bandwagoning on a tide of anti-immigration sort of sentiment. Okay.
Sorry, just a quick question there. So what's the difference between restore and reform? Not
a lot. Not a lot.
Like a few letters.
One of them is Nigel Farage's ego. The other one is Rupert Lowe's ego.
Yeah.
No.
But okay, other than that, it's a cigarette paper between their policies. I think the main one they differ on Restore's pushing to bring back the death penalty. I don't think Reform have picked that one up yet. Not to say they won't. I don't know if you remember, I don't know if our audience remembers, it was an old British quiz show, the name of which escapes me at the moment, but Alan Davis used to be on it all the time. QI, is it QI?
QI?
I think it's QI.
Yeah, he was one of the captains or something, I think.
Yeah, he tended to be. Well,
even Fry back in the day.
I have it used to have a sound called the klaxon. So here we go.
Amber, I'll answer you that question, Amber.
Because that question, Amber, is pure Israeli Zionist propaganda, because it's always worded in exactly those words. And that's how I know it's not come out of your own head. It's not something you've thought about. It's something you've read, because it's always worded in exactly the same words. But we'll answer it. And I'm sure Glenn will have something to add to it as well. But I'll answer it to start with. A, why should they have to be taken in by anyone? Why should they be driven from their own land and their own home? The land is Palestine. The land is not Israel. It never was. And even if you want to pretend that it's Israel, Gaza is not Israel. The West Bank is not Israel, despite how much they keep claiming. But why won't the other Arab nations, the other Muslim nations, as you put it, which shows your Islamophobia to start with, why won't they take them in? Because most of them are Israel and US puppet states. The people might, the leadership won't, because the leaders are Western, Israeli and US puppets. And the small proportion that aren't support Palestine's right to be in the Palestinians' right to stay and live in Palestine, not to be genocided and driven out by the fuckwit terrorist regime of Israel. Okay, Glenn, have that.
Yeah, two aspects really. Two aspects are that let's turn to international law. Under international law, displacing people is a war crime, and aiding in that displacement is also a war crime. So many states have not wanted to get involved because they did not want to be seen complicit in the forced displacement of people. Nevertheless, Egypt has taken 100,000 Palestinian refugees, people who have fled Palestine. Jordan has taken, well, Jordan's population of Palestinians is bigger than the Jordanian population. Lebanon has taken endless amounts of Palestinian refugees. And we are not just talking since October the 7th. We are talking historically all the way back to the first Nakba, when hundreds of thousands of Palestinians were driven from their homes by the regime of the Israelis. So this is historic taking of Palestinian refugees. And Alex is quite right. They have a right to remain on the land that is their historic homeland. The idea that Palestine was an empty land that was populated somehow by incoming Arabs is a complete myth. These people have lived on those lands since biblical times. They are, in fact, the original Semites. They belong on that land far more than the incoming Israelis who started to arrive in boats in the late 19th century and early 20th century. And so the amount of people that we are taking under the Gaza medical evacuation scheme is tiny. It's tiny. We are not opening the floodgates to hundreds of thousands of benefit scroungers who want to form some kind of jihad and take over the country. These are medical cases that are being evacuated because of dire need. So, yeah, to answer that question, other Arab countries are taking them, but fuckwit countries like Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates have not taken them for exactly the reasons Alex just laid out.
Yeah.
So I hope that answers you.
Yeah, it certainly should do. It certainly should do. And where is it? The Lone Ranger. Yes, we did do exactly the same in Ireland. Yeah. And I don't say that the famine was entirely pretended because people died by lack of food, but it was not aided by, and it was in many ways caused by the British absentee landlords.
And Scotland.
So I fully take, and yes, we've done the same. We use the same tactics, and we are in danger of getting into colonialization, but we use the same tactics, and partition is partition is one of them, but plantation is what I was looking for, is one of them. And we tried plantation on Scotland as much as we tried it on Ireland. Just didn't work quite as well. Thank God. Anyway, but I'm not going to get too far into colonialism, as I say, because we would be here all day. But it does bring us nicely into Gaza. But first, perhaps we need to look closer at the narrative building that's going on at home at the moment. How many anti-Semitic attacks are we supposed to have had this week? I've lost count. But
I'm not sure. Sorry, Alex. Are we including bombing tent cities in Gaza?
No. That's the real anti-Semitic.
Yeah, that's the real anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry,
I'm talking about the ones that the Tel Aviv Graph put out daily on my feed, including the latest one, which is supposedly counter-terrorism officers are investigating a video posted to social media on Friday claiming the Israeli embassy in London was going to be attacked with drones carrying dangerous substances. Now, the embassy has confirmed that it wasn't attacked and that its staff are perfectly safe, but they didn't stop the Met closing off Kensington Gardens for most of the day. And I mean, the police have come out and said that the items, including 2 jars containing a powdered substance, were not actually considered harmful or hazardous. And the whole social media video is supposed to have been posted by what they've now started with the Iran-linked Islamist group, Harakat Ashab al-Yamin al-Islamiyah, which actually, the bit they keep using of it actually comes up owners of the right, which I find quite interesting. But that aside, because I take that in a very different way than they mean it. But it's supposedly them that have claimed it, and it supposedly showed a target over an image of the Israeli embassy, followed by people dressed in hazmat suits flying drones. Now, if you haven't heard of this Harakat Ashab al-Yamin al-Islamiyah, it's because they just made it up. Oh dear, did I say the loud bit, the quiet bit loud again? It's because they just fucking made it up. And, well, I'm not alone on that sort of attitude, because you've got to love the comment section. Now, I've said before how they target the comments they show you to your own views. But still, it does still amuse me, because this was just 3 of them. Did they find a passport next to the drone? Are the sources with us in the room? And my favourite, and not just because he's also using Tel Aviv Graph, which I've been putting everywhere. Tel Aviv Graph are currently interrogating the 2 injured Lego pilots who were dragged from the wreckage. Oh dear. Are you buying it, Kia? Are you buying the idea that there's this new terrorist group and that these are all genuinely anti-Semitic attacks on synagogues and Israeli assemblies?
Sorry for cutting you off there. I would very much doubt it. Very, very much doubt it. If it's in the news, it's not news. Right? That's rule 101. If the government's telling you, just, take it with a pinch of salt. I mean, put it this way, to keep it simple, 6 weeks ago, I never heard about any Iranian alleged plots or attacks or in the news articles or across the radio or whatever about attacks on Britain. Now, since the last 6-7 weeks, apparently there's been dozens foiled and there are dozens planned. Funny, that is what I would say. Yeah,
exactly.
It is odd, isn't it, really? And Glenn, I know you're passionate about this one, but the story you, funny enough, have to dig to try and find out about is the trial, the Palestine Action trial. So if you want to have your say on these attacks, by all means, go ahead. But if not, afterwards, get on to that trial and see what you can tell us on that.
Okay. Now, I don't want people to forget that the Israeli intelligence agency Mossad have actually carried out attacks on Israeli embassies before. There, notably a car bomb, a satchel bomb, and also there was the killing of the 2 Israeli embassy staff in America, which I can't remember which city it was, but that was undoubtedly Mossad. So it wouldn't be beyond the bounds of possibility for this to be this agency, this new terrorist agency, to be entirely Mossad invented. So I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying you can actually understand why people become more anti-Semitic if you take the International Holocaust Agency's definition of that, which is gross and only defines it as the Israeli government. But nevertheless, so by those standards, I am anti-Semitic. I'm proud to be so. All right, so let's look at Palestine Action. Let's look at this trial that is mostly not hitting the headlines. Now, this trial actually started on the 14th. It started on the 14th of this month at Woolwich Crown Court. And it actually isn't a trial, it is a retrial. Because on February the 6th this year, 6 members of Palestine Action were actually released. They were released after 18 months in jail. And that was after a jury found them not guilty. They were found not guilty of aggravated burglary on the 4th of February. And the jury refused to convict them of criminal damage. So they were released from prison on the 14th of February. Now, the British government has actually brought them back for trial on these offences again. So it's a retrial on the same charges. So you might say, well, you can't. That doesn't happen because of something called double jeopardy. You can't be tried for the same offence twice. Well, I'll come back to that shortly. Now, 5 members of these 6 who were being held are appearing, as I say, at Woolwich Crown Court, along with a 6th member, Samantha Corner, who's been held in jail for over 600 days. Now, Corner is facing a further charge of grievous bodily harm related to allegedly striking a police officer with a sledgehammer. So let's come back to that double jeopardy thing. The reason these 5 can be retried for the same offence is that back in 2005, the government quietly scrapped the double jeopardy law. And that double jeopardy law had existed in Britain for 800 years and more. So in 2005, which most people are not aware of, that law was scrapped. And so the government can put you on trial again if they think you deserve it, if they think there's something in it for them. Now, this trial will be a test for this regime, this state's crackdown on support for Palestine Action. And the trial's expected to last up to 8 weeks. Now, from the start of the trial on the 14th of this month, as I said, supporters of the group of Palestine Action have been protesting outside the court. And many arrests have again been made of people holding up cardboard signs, people in wheelchairs, old people, mostly old people, because that's who's got the time to go and do the protest. People who feel strongly that Palestine Action should not be a prescribed organization. And talking of being a prescribed organization, these arrests are being made despite the High Court ruling that the government's prescription of Palestine Action as a terrorist organization under the 2000 Terrorism Act was unlawful, and that it contravened the government's own policy on prescription, as well as breaching the fundamental rights of freedom of expression and freedom of assembly, which are both enshrined in Article 10 and Article 11 of the European Convention on Human Rights, to which Britain is a signatory. But as I say, despite the ruling, the protesters continue to be arrested because the government are appealing the High Court's decision, and they have said the prescription will remain in place until such time as that appeal has been heard. So we're in this kind of limbo where the government are claiming they still have the right to arrest people under a prescription that the highest court of this land has deemed is illegal. Okay. Now, meanwhile, at this trial, counsel for the members of Palestine Action have been instructed that the defendants are not allowed to explain their motivation or beliefs which caused them to enter the premises of Elbit Systems, where these alleged offences took place. Well, these offences for which they've already been cleared once. Okay. Now, obviously Elbit Systems are an Israeli-owned arms and military tech company. Now, concerns are also being voiced as to whether the jury have actually been informed of their right to acquit in this case. And also that any sentences passed down in this case may not be being done under ordinary British law, but will be handed down under the Terrorism Act, which makes the sentences far more draconian, you might say. Okay. What else have I got on that? Okay, so moving out from the trial, what is obvious to me is that pressure has been and is continuing to be brought on this government by Israel. And this is the same pressure that has caused 40 out of 50 American states to make it an offense to criticize Israel or the Israeli government. And it's also seen similar efforts to do so in many other countries. So we must make no mistake, what we have been seen playing out in Britain is part of this agenda. It's an agenda to make sure Israel remains untouchable, remains immune from criticism, and remains above the law. Now, this particular case is ongoing. The trial, as I say, is still running, and I will continue to keep an eye on it to judge, as an ordinary citizen, whether this is being done in a fair and rightful manner. Okay, so that was a little look at that.
Yeah. That's kind of the first thing I was going to say before you got to it anyway, is they are back, because they stopped for a while, to arresting people for a charge that has been arresting people on a charge that's been announced as unlawful by the court just because they're appealing it. I mean, can I steal your car? And even though I've been convicted of stealing it, can I appeal that conviction and continue driving around in your car? Because this is what we're saying. I can carry on driving around in that car all until the appeal comes through. But since when has the British state ever been fair on Palestine or anybody supporting it? Because it's not Israel, and that's the whole point. If supporting Palestine means we're guilty, so we're guilty one and all. Thoughts, Kia?
Well, again, guys, I would say it's another fingers in the pies of madness wherever you look. And I mean, Jesus, they're arresting vicars and grannies and students, and like Glenn was saying, the people that have got the time to actually go out and protest. I believe they're also going to make it illegal to do the same protest twice. Yeah. So it's I mean, when I was younger, believe it or not, the phrase used to be, well, do what you want, it's a free country. Yeah. And the way I see it is, I would have to rephrase that and say, well, do what you want, but it's a totalitarian, authoritarian, bloody technocratic regime that's infringing on your daily rights day by day, and it's going to get worse week by week. So say what you want, but you'll probably get arrested for a tweet.
Yeah. Yeah, and especially if that's against any one of Israel's enemies. So moving out from Palestine, I think the first piece you got for us today is I know we've said things before, but the first main piece you got for us today, I believe, is an update on Lebanon, Glenn.
Right, okay. Yeah, I forgot the running order. So I got my notes mixed up. So I'm having to shuffle them. All right. So as Alex just said, I've been looking, I've been concentrating on this situation in Lebanon. Now, as we know, if you've been following this, Israel has been bombing Lebanon's southern region, south of the Litani River, and carrying out strikes they've been carrying out the strikes in the Bekaa Valley, as well as southern Beirut. And this is in what people are told is in response to rocket attacks by Hezbollah back in early March. But in reality, if you take a look at this situation, in reality, Israel has been bombing Lebanon on an almost daily basis since the November 2024 ceasefire. Israel has already destroyed over 10,000 buildings, and they'd already destroyed around that many buildings and killed around 130 civilians up to November last year. So this is not something new. What we're seeing is an upscaling of something that has been going on in typical Israeli fashion since a ceasefire was engaged in. And the remarkable fact is that throughout the period up to March this year, the Lebanese government have done nothing. They've said nothing. Now, back in September 2025, the Lebanese government implemented what it calls the Homeland Shield Plan, also known as the Hezbollah Disarmament Plan. But this is where, in typical Lebanese style, it all starts to get complicated. Because Hezbollah and another party called Amal, who are aligned with them, actually have 24 seats in the Lebanese parliament. And 23 of these 24 seats represent all of the seats in southern Lebanon. And we can see the kind of division of the country here at slide 1. There we go. So if you look at that pink area down at the bottom there, all of that is South Lebanon. And South Lebanon's parliamentary representatives are all Hezbollah the political wing of Hezbollah. So it's unsurprising that they're in conflict with their own government. All of Hezbollah and all of the Amal members in parliament reject the Hezbollah disarmament plan because they see Hezbollah as the only force protecting the country or attempting to protect the country, whereas the rest of the 104 members of the parliament are backing the unity government. And there are also 3 of the 30 ministers in that government who are also from Hamas and Amal, who also oppose this plan. Now, within hours of Hezbollah's rocket and drone attack in support of Iran, Lebanese President Joseph Aoun rejected what he called the firing of rockets as an irresponsible. And he said his government would not allow his country to be dragged into new adventures. So the result is that Lebanon's army have put up no resistance to Israel's incursion into southern Lebanon, which we can see the build-up for here at slide 2. There's some tanks waiting to go into southern Lebanon. Now, the only actual force that has been resisting them is Hezbollah. Slide 3, we can see what Hezbollah has been doing to these tanks. Yeah, it's a destroyed tank. The Lebanese army, however, they took up positions in Palestinian, Christian, and Druze villages in the south, on the grounds that Israel had given assurances not to bomb these villages if Hezbollah had no presence in them. But this has not been the case. It's strangely a case of Israel not keeping its word. And at this point, around 90% of all Christians living in South Lebanon have fled, following evacuation orders from the IDF. And they added to the estimated 1.2 million who have fled into Syria, and the rest into areas around Beirut, where they're living like this at slide 4. And this is all becoming very reminiscent, isn't it? Now, Israeli air raids at this point have killed at least 1,500 people, including 126 children like these, and almost 5,000 have been wounded. So as the Israeli expansion expanded deeper into South Lebanon, it left behind deserted villages and a land empty of its inhabitants, prompting the Lebanese president to make a televised address, not criticizing Israel, but pleading with the Israelis for negotiations. Why don't we negotiate, he said, until we can at least save the homes that have not been destroyed? No. Then on March the 12th, the Israeli military expanded its forced evacuation orders, which at that point had gone up to the Litany River, and they expanded those north to the Zaharani River, which we can see here at slide 5. So the Litany River can be seen at the bottom of this image, or running through the middle of this image, sorry, and the Zaharani River is above it. So this is an expansion of the evacuation orders. Now, it seemed like the Israelis had no intention whatsoever of stopping their invasion or their destruction. There then followed the worst day of bombardment of air raids so far up to that point. And Israel launched more than 100 strikes in an intense bombing raid that leveled, well, densely populated neighborhoods, mostly in and around Beirut. And at least 360 civilians were killed and more than 1,000 were injured, according to the Lebanese Health Ministry. And as of Wednesday this week, there are still dozens missing. On Thursday, Donald Trump announced the 10-day ceasefire had been negotiated, and the ceasefire was negotiated directly between the Lebanese government and the Israelis, not by Donald Trump or any of his people surrounding him. Now, this is, well, it's not a negotiated settlement to this conflict. It's just a 10-day period to allow for supposedly further negotiations to take place. So let's look at the kind of way that this ceasefire is operating. Israel will not withdraw from Lebanese territory. It will not withdraw from any territory that it has taken, and Israel retains the right to take all necessary measures it deems acts of self-defense, whilst not carrying out any offensive military operations while negotiations take place. This, of course, means that they're free to bomb whoever and shell whoever they wish on the grounds that they are defending themselves. We've seen this tactic used before. We've seen it in Gaza. And that's basically all that is required of the Israelis. Now, Trump has said that this truce includes Hezbollah, but Hezbollah were not part of the truce negotiations. And the truth agreement also says that Lebanon, for its part, must take meaningful steps to prevent Hezbollah and what it calls rogue non-state armed groups from carrying out attacks against Israel. Now, for its part, Hezbollah has actually signaled a willingness to participate in this ceasefire, but it said it must include a comprehensive halt to attacks. It's obvious, to be honest, Israel do not intend to relinquish the ground that it's taken. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz has stated Israel will occupy all land up to the Litani River. And that's about, 19, 20 miles into Lebanon. And that all villages near the Israeli border will be destroyed to prevent reoccupation. So that was the ceasefire that came into effect. But just hours after that ceasefire, Israel once again conducted massive bombing raids that we can see here at slide 6. And these bombing raids were right across Lebanon, right across southern Lebanon. Now, it's actually been quiet for a few days, and Iran has responded by saying, this is a statement by Iran, in line with the ceasefire, the Straits of Hormuz will be opened for the remainder of the ceasefire period. However, that has recently changed. But Trump says his blockade will remain until a peace deal is signed. And now the Iranians have said, well, if you're going to keep your blockade in place, we're going to reinstate ours. But Trump added that Israel will no longer bomb Lebanon. Unfortunately, again, not the case. So we are kind of in a limbo. But meanwhile, Israel is bringing in what it calls a new yellow line into southern Lebanon. And if you recall, this exact thing was brought in Gaza, and anyone who attempting to cross that red line was being shot at. It doesn't matter who those people are. And so this is another sign that Israel intends to keep the area that it has taken. All right. So that's where we are in terms of Lebanon.
Okay.
There's an awful lot of noise here today. We've got dogs, we've got geese, we've got planes, we've got all sorts. So I hope you could hear me.
No worries. Well, while we're on the ceasefire, that does bring us to Iran. And now the ceasefire in Iran, as you've already mentioned, has been breached by everyone pretty much now. Although, as always, it was Israel that breached it first because they like to be first at everything. But it's kind of been a week of, and this is paraphrased before someone tells me he didn't say that. This is paraphrased, but it's been a week of Trump. The straits are open. And if he'd have just left it there, it would have possibly stayed that way. But it always continues because then it becomes the straits are open. We beat Iran into submission. We humiliated them. They came begging to the table. Iran, actually, the straits are open, but with conditions. Trump, what the fuck? You want to open the straits? We'll close them. We'll stop anyone going in and anyone coming out. Iran, really? Trump, the straits are open. And again, even maybe then, if he'd have left it, it'd have been fine. Because then it becomes, the straits are open. We're the best negotiators ever. We're going to attack all Iranian ships anywhere at sea. Iran, the straits are closed. I mean, actually, they're open for any adult in the room. But we'll keep it simple, shall we, America? The straits are closed to you. Now, I'm paraphrasing, but am I wrong here? Is that what's just happened over the last week or not?
That is what's happened. The blockade of the blockade, it's a blockade, it isn't a blockade, and the strait's open, but it's not open, but it is, but it's not. I mean, it'll change in 2 hours' time. It'll probably bloody change. And listening to anything that DJT says is just, why would you bother, right? Unless you want to pump and dump a few million barrels of bloody oil, you don't really need to listen to what Donald Trump is saying. But, you know, that's also a dangerous position to take, because one of these days, the things he says he's going to actually bloody do, right? You know what I mean? Like put a civilization back to the Stone Age or some crap, right? It's just, it's crazy. And then just on that, I was watching one of the talking heads, which is actually quite good, is Colonel Douglas McGregor. I was watching him, and he's predicting a restarting of the campaign on Iran by Monday. Of course, by Monday. Right? It's always off by Friday, back on by Monday. I mean, I'm no political analyst, but I would say I would bet you £100 right now that they're going to start bombing Iran tonight. Right? And then, but the campaign isn't going to be for regime change or to get any uranium back. The campaign is going to be to destroy the Iranian people, not the regime, the people, the infrastructure, the cities, the towns, the villages, normal bloody people, right? And it's not to take out the Islamic Revolutionary Guard or to force a regime change, which they say has already been enforced, which hasn't been enforced, and they don't know who they're talking to, but they might be talking to someone, and no one's ever even seen the new Ayatollah. So who knows what's going on, right? Who really knows? But Iran has already said, if this is going to happen, we'll respond in kind, like we have been for the last month so, 6 weeks so, and we will continue, and we will absolutely destroy the oil production, the gas production, and the salination plants right across the region. And America still seems hell-bent on doing it. And on top of that, I think it was it even a week ago? It feels like a bloody year ago. Trump was on TV saying, "Oh, we never expected them to retaliate and start taking our bases or the production facilities." And Iran's like, "Okay, if you attack our military, we'll attack yours," and they did it. And then they said, "Okay, if you attack our infrastructure, we're going to attack yours." They did it. And then they said, "Right, if you attack our oil production facilities, then we're going to take out yours," and they did it. And America was like, "We had no idea they were going to do that." And I'm sitting here, just as a normal guy in Scotland, going, "I fucking knew they were going to do that. I could have phoned up DJT and said they're going to fuck you up, right?" But for some reason, these American politicians are like, "Oh, we had no idea that they were so crazy." And it's like, well, who attacked who? Right? Can you remind me? Who, why, and when this war started, and how you're going to reopen these straits that were already open before you got them shut, and they're now crashing and destroying the world economy, heading us into a definite recession and probably a depression by the start of next year. Fantastic. Cheers, guys.
Yeah. And the thing is that what people have come to realize, or at least anyone who's paying attention has come to realize, is that Trump doesn't actually have policies. His policies consist of whatever he's saying on stage at that minute. That's where we are with him. I watched a thing this afternoon where he was talking yet again how he's going to change the American health system, where insurance companies were no longer going to be involved. Now, this is an old plan of his, and he brought that forth in a dossier, a big, thick dossier, which he handed to a reporter. And it turned out that dossier was just blank pages. There was nothing on it. All it was written on the cover. It was just a prop. And that's what Trump to me is. He acts, and he's just said, "I've now stopped 8 wars," and he's including this one, a war that he fucking started. So,
I think it's 10 now. I think he's claiming 10.
Oh, no.
He did say 8.
It's kind of the Simpsons thing where when Homer's doing his tax returns and decides he's got to save money, and Bart says, I'll tell you what, I'll start smoking and then I'll quit. And he said, yes, that's great, boy. And Lisa said, but he didn't do anything. Didn't he, Lisa? Didn't he? I'm going to start a war and then I can say I stopped it.
And I can say I finished it.
He didn't do anything.
He has no policy.
That level of saying,
Just makes it up on the hoof.
Maybe you should watch more Lego movies, and then
you should, and we will get to that one. We will get to that one. Before we do, I'm just going to do a brief sort of update on Ukraine, and I'm not going to hit all the high points, but it's the one that's still carrying on that we've got a tendency, because everything now is Iran, we've got a tendency to forget. And Ukraine only gets mentioned when they want to try and go back to blaming it on Russia. So the Department of Defense will keep trying to tell us how it's all one war. That's their latest one. It's all one war. Well, in many ways it is, but not in the way they're implying. It really is the Ukrainian front and the Middle Eastern front, effectively, because it is still, and both is effectively the globalist war. But the situation in Ukraine, you've got the Russian defense. They're currently, again, in a truce, or they're supposed to be in an Easter, Orthodox Easter truce. Now, they've come out and the Russian Defense Ministry has tallied up and they've announced that Ukrainian forces have violated the 32-hour, mind you, the 32-hour Easter ceasefire. Not true, sorry, ceasefire will be more accurate. Easter ceasefire more than 6,500 times. So they're getting close to Israel's sort of attitude as to how long they actually obey it. Now, most of, and it's, I think the actual final figure is 6,558. But most of these violations have involved short-range UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, so drones, basically. And they've been continuing a bombardment, less than there has been before the ceasefire, but they've still been carrying on. Now, perhaps this is one of the reasons that Russia's defense ministry has published that list of Ukraine-linked military production facilities around the world. This one is the little map, and basically warned that the European countries that produce weapons for Kiev risk a direct conflict with Russia. But of course, as always, people write it off. People take the attitude that, oh, they won't do anything. And this is the attitude they've been playing with Russia for a long time. But the problem is they put their own version of Russia's red lines out there. And then when Russia doesn't respond to a red line that it never set in the first place, they say they did nothing. Well, these are the places they've announced that are producing weapons for Kiev. And Medvedev pretty much put it much more simply when he said, announced on Twitter, Russian Defense Ministry's statement must be taken literally. The list of European facilities which make drones and other equipment is a list of potential targets for the Russian armed forces. When strikes become a reality, depends on what comes next. Sleep well, European partners. I do love the way Medvedev says stuff. But he has stated very clearly, this is a list of targets, mate. This is not just a pretty little map we've thing. We're not just saying we can see you. We know, like our defense ministry, we can see you, Russia. Well, Russia's not just saying we can see you. We can see your interference. We can see your involvement. And you're on the target list. Think about how you act next, because that will affect on how long you stay on that list and how quickly we start working through that list. Now, since then, we've had Sergei Shoigu has come out and he's cautioned Finland and the Baltic states against allowing Kiev to use their airspace for attacks on Russia. And he stated, Russia has the right to retaliate if Finland and the Baltic states are found to be deliberately allowing Ukrainian drones to pass through their airspace. Because there has been a recent increase in Ukrainian drone strikes against Russia via Finland via Lithuania, by Latvia, and via Estonia. Most, of course, striking civilians and civilians' infrastructure, because why wouldn't they? Now, even, and this is what he's gone on to say, this is what Shoigu's gone on to say, either Western air defences are proven ineffective, or these four countries deliberately provide their airspace, thereby becoming open accomplices in aggression against Russia. In the latter case, Moscow has the right to self-defence in response to an armed attack under Article 51 of the UN Charter. Now, at the end of last month, Kiev attacked Russia's Baltic seaports of Ust-Luga and Primorsk with swarms of UAVs, and it resulted basically in fires in both towns. But the towns, of course, which house extensive petrochemical infrastructure, also resulted in the death of 2 children. And they've come on and said that if this is a deliberate allowance by these states, it means NATO is actively and provably participating in the war. Now, in response to that attack at the end of last month, on Thursday, Russia carried out mass strikes on Ukrainian military and energy sites. But that's one half of the story. That's the drone half of the story. But meanwhile, the bit that I haven't certainly looked at for a while is the front line and the full Russian-controlled areas, which now looks like this. Now, to give you a perspective, this is in 2014. Now, this is March 2022, and this is a bit of this is a bit of the exception to the gradual increase. But this was when they were trying to push Ukraine to the negotiating table. This was when they moved on Kiev to try and get the Istanbul talks going. And what you need to look at when you're looking at this one is the difference between the pink areas and the pink striped areas, which was the Russians pushing forward to trying to achieve those peace talks, not what they fully controlled. But then we have August 25, and you can see a very solid red block covering pretty much all of this is where I get them around the wrong way. I don't know which one's which. My geography is not good. But either we're covering one of Donetsk or Lugansk, and we're a good chunk of the other one. And then this is we're covering practically all of Luhansk and most of Donetsk. And this is now basically in March. No, where are we now? Shows how fast the year's going. In April 2026. Now, it may not look a massive difference between there and there, but if you actually look closely and you look at the stripy areas, which is practically the increase from one to the other, you are seeing effectively a consistent and unremitted advance. They are taking on the ground, they are taking town after town after town, and they are keeping them, and they are keeping control of them. And meanwhile, Ukraine are still facing a massive conscription problem. The problem, there's nobody left to conscript. And I mean that literally. I don't literally mean that every Ukrainian is dead. But what I mean is that the people that haven't been called up, that haven't fled the country, that are left in the country, are needed to keep the country running. They don't have people sat around that they can just call up. What's left, what hasn't fled, is needed to keep the country running. About the only way they could get anywhere further with that would literally be to start calling up the people that have already fled the country. People have paid the right backhanders to the right people to be let to get out, and the people, well, continued what they do is widening the age range and who they will and won't take. That's where we are in many ways in Ukraine. It's still going on. Russia are slowly but consistently moving that line forwards. And by the time Zelensky even thinks about coming to the table, those 4 regions, which they already control on paper, because the people, and I will say this again, I haven't said it for a while, the people of those 4 regions voted to be Russian. Very soon it won't be relevant because they will control them on the ground. Thoughts, people?
Yeah. Sorry, Glenn. Sorry, Glenn.
No, go on you go, kid. Right.
Just a couple of things there. I was going to jump in there and say I didn't realize you knew about it, but of course you do. That they published the names and addresses of all the drone manufacturing factories in Europe.
Yeah.
On the internet, right? Publicly for everyone to see. And they were basically kind of calling arms, saying, look, this is where they are. Right? We don't have to drop a bomb on them, but you know what, if you're sympathetic, right, could happen. So they're obviously stirring the pot a little bit there. Obviously. And then on top of that, I just saw the other day that they're amassing troops again in southern Belarus. But on top of that, and I think Glenn can keep me right here, is a bulkhead, a military bulkhead, like a line across southern Belarus with troops and infrastructure. But they're also building the towers, like probably Wi-Fi towers, technology towers, to keep in touch with the drones.
Yeah.
So they can fly drones effectively across northern Ukraine, rather than just the south and the east, where they've been localized or located or pushing through.
Yeah.
So now it seems like they're going for almost a pincer movement, maybe, coming from the Belarusian side to have the technology to fly their UAPs or UAVs or whatever across the north, which would be more towards the Kiev area. But from past experience, when the 2022 invasion happened, they did start amassing troops in January, February in Belarus and said, oh, this is just a training exercise. And then they pushed down from the north. So it could be that they're trying to bolster defenses for Belarus just in case the Ukrainians or Europeans or whoever try and go north to Belarus, or they're gearing up for another, or not a final push, but another big push to come in from the north. And then maybe kind of starting to create kind of a buffer zone all the way around the edges of Ukraine to like push the Ukrainians back and keep themselves safe. But from my experience, the last time there was a mass amount of troops in Belarus, it wasn't a training exercise.
No, that's me now. Yeah, I think the whole kind of drone issue is becoming the definitive thing of the Ukrainian war now, because as Alex said, Ukraine is suffering massive manpower shortages. You know, they've dragged virtually everybody they can off the streets, but there are lots of countries willing to supply them with these drones, including us, for free, by the way. You know, this is not like they're buying them off, they're just giving them to them. So in this way, this war can be kept alive, kept active. And I have seen a disturbing report about a proposal to for all European countries to anywhere where Ukrainians have fled, for them to issue orders that those Ukrainian men of fighting age leave, and the only place that they can go is Ukraine. So they're kind of trying a backdoor draft of all the people who fled. And this is entirely because they've run out of manpower. So those guys are only just going to end up as more cannon fodder, more meat for the grinder. So we're in a very strange position where I think if Russia really wanted to, it could quite easily do some very large movements. But it has persisted with this slow grinding forward because I believe at the end of the day, they've never really wanted, they don't want to take Ukraine. They don't want the rest of Ukraine. They've no use for Ukraine. They're quite happy to free the Novorossiya areas and maintain that as the new front. But they're constantly being provoked, constantly being attacked. There could be a settlement to this if Ukraine would see sense, which it won't do, and if its European backers actually saw sense. But neither of those seems to be on the cards. So that's where we are.
Yes. So are we going from save a Ukrainian to fucking kick them out your flat and wave them goodbye at the airport?
Rightly so. Off you go back to Ukraine. You need it.
Yeah. Cheers for that. Bye.
We went quite quickly from save Granny to let's kill all Russians. So
yeah, and then moving on to let's sacrifice Ukrainians, right?
Yeah, and these are the brave defenders that you had to help and give your property to. Now it's fine. Just send them back. Just send them to the meat grinder.
See you later.
Yeah. Amazing.
Well, that brings us round, and we are going to transition today, guys. This might go a bit long. I'm warning you that now if you're watching, but we are going to transition to the more conspiratorial side in a bit. But just before we do, we've kind of mentioned it already, but we want to look at Trump and the latest Trump, I don't know what you call it, insanity maybe would probably be the best word. But it kind of starts. Now, if you have been living under a rock, as I haven't said for a while, but if you have, Trump is currently involved in a mostly one-sided slanging match with the Pope. This is where we are. Now, it started here. It started with this picture. Now, there was something of an outcry, and he took the picture down. He claimed it was showing him as a doctor, mind you. I know a lot of doctors that wear, and there's goodness knows how many memes out there about the new scrubs that they're introducing and all this sort of thing. But he argued it showed him as a doctor, and that's why he shared it. The question is whether he was meant to say it had been doctored and it came from that. But no, he claimed it showed him as a doctor. And then he went on to replace, in many ways, that image with this one. And the original version of this one had the caption, God might be playing the trump card. Might be playing his trump card. I think there is something wrong with this guy's ego. Something seriously wrong with this guy's ego. Now, I will ask you guys in a minute if he's lost it. But first, I want to show you one of the Iran Lego videos. Now, we've had a talk about this, or have we, Glenn? And we are taking a bit of a risk here because they have taken the channel down from YouTube. And we don't give a fuck about these places censoring us, but some things sometimes seem a petty thing to get a strike for and to get banned for when it stops us getting the truth out there. But they kind of lose something without the audio. So we are going to play these as is. And I'm going to make the point, not that the algorithm will necessarily pick it up, I'm going to make the point. This is called satire. It's political satire. And political satire can be reproduced for a reason. When you stop down the conversation, when you stop people talking about something, then you are affecting their freedom of speech. Satire is not propaganda. It's not the same thing. And this is satire. And we play it purely to make a journalistic comment of this. We play it under the right of journalistic analysis. I may not be using exactly the right words for that, but that is the point I want to make here. So I'm going to play you the first one that Iran, and there's so many of these going around, but this is what the first reply to this that Iran put out.
Thought I was just the doctor. Fake Jesus. You put on the robe and the glowing light, pretending to heal while you start the fight. I ran on this Jesus, the pure and the true. You mocked the faith, what a shame from you. You attack the Pope, calling weak and confused, and drop that AI pick like you're the one who's been chosen. White robe, shining hands, healing the man, while your bombs fall on our children in Iran. The Pope stands tall, says he's not afraid of you. You keep playing savior like the whole world is fooled. You think you're holy? Nah, you're just a clown, pretending to be Christ while you tear the world down. Fake Jesus, you put on the robe and the glowing light, pretending to heal while you start the fight. I ran on this Jesus, the pure and the true. You mocked the fake, what a shame from you. In Iran we respect Jesus, the Messiah, the light, a prophet of mercy, a message so bright. You twist it for clout, turn it into a meme, while you push for more war and more suffering. You act like the chosen, but the signs are all wrong, playing antichrist games while the real ones stay strong. You delete the post quick when the backlash gets loud, but we see the truth, you're just another proud. Sacred defense, we honor the real one. You fake it for clout, yeah.
So, Kia, has Trump lost it? You're muted.
Sorry, guys. What can you say to that? When you have to start using Lego cartoons to get your message across to the American public, if not the world public, for them to sit up and take notice and start speaking about it, is just crazy. I mean, and that post he put up about him and saying he's been a doctor, it's like, yeah, I believe that as far as I can spit, right? And then, of course, I put up a version of that on Facebook, actually. And instead of it being the American flag, it was the Israeli flag. And he was healing Jeffrey Epstein, and then there was Netanyahu and Melania, and, you know, just no. But it was just Trump being a doctor. So I just thought I'd share a meme with different colors, right? You know, just to keep up with the program. But I think Iran is doing a stand-up job with it. Who would have thought, right? That would be at war with Iran, then all of a sudden they'd be pumping out rap Lego videos. and I think I've said before, and you get more information than you do off the bloody BBC just by watching one of these 5 minutes Iran videos, right? It's crazy, like, but it's funny. It's funny, it's sinister, it's bad, it's good, you know. But you know, it does catch the eye, is what I'll say.
The thing is that they are funny, but they don't seem to trivialize it the way the American with the GTA one and that sort of thing do. It doesn't seem to have that same trivialization, or they don't to me, but maybe that's just I am biased. That's my opinion. I'm going to play one more and then we'll give Glenn his say and then we will transition over. So this is the second response.
Yeah. The Iranian president picked up his phone and read about the Jesus image at dawn. The man who leads the country at war decided something that crossed the line. In Islam, Jesus is a prophet, not a costume for a social post. So he typed the words nobody expected from the side that matters to him most. I condemn the desecration of Jesus, the prophet of peace and brotherhood. He said it to defend the Pope while his warships held their position where they stood. The Pope was on a plane to Africa unaware his enemy just had his back. The White House communications room had no protocol for that. 40,000 troops in Hormuz, weapons pointed at each other's coast. And somewhere in that standoff, a statement nobody could have forecast. The Catholic congregation read it on their phones in a church in Ohio, still lit by candles. The priest read it too, nobody had the words to handle. A Quran open on a desk in Iran, Jesus' prophet, 3rd verse. The theological bridge that war couldn't burn, for better or for worse. The world map showed the lines connecting Vatican to Tehran and gold. Two enemies defending the same figure, that's a story nobody told. Trump deleted the image, said it was him as a doctor. But the Iranian president already set the post and the world got a little odder. No surrender to the simple narrative, we hold the line, all of us. Sometimes your enemy makes more sense than the people you can trust. The Pope read the Iranian statement somewhere over the African coast. Expression moving through surprise to something like, oh, of course. The world is stranger than any map, stranger than any war. Two men on opposite sides of everything agreeing on what Jesus is for. Standing by, the warship still in position, the statement still posted. The image.
Okay. And that's the bit they want you to forget. They want you to forget that Islam's view on Jesus compared to Zionism's view on Jesus, even the Jewish view on Jesus, is very different. And actually, it's more favourable from Islam than it is from Judaism. So your thoughts on the whole videos, and did Trump have it to lose and have it in the first place to lose? And then we will transition.
What Iran has done with these Lego videos is it has basically taken the high ground of propaganda, but not propaganda. It has taken the high ground with what people can see is the reality. They've just done it in a way that captures people's eye, as Keir said. It catches your eye and it focuses your attention on the actual issues. And the issue here with Trump has begun, whether or not it's the influence of all the Christian Zionist fucking lunatics that surround him, and they, the pastors laying hands on him and all this sort of thing. It has painted Trump as a man with a messianic complex, a man who believes he is the world's savior, who believes he's been sent by God. And there ain't nobody in the White House or in his orbit that's telling him no, for fuck's sake, you've just upset the Pope. You've just, don't worry about upsetting the Muslims. You've already done that 1,000 times over by bombing every fucking Muslim country on the earth, just about. Well, all the ones you don't like. And the fundamental fact is that Islam and Christianity have much more in common than Islam and Judaism. Jesus is a revered figure. Yeshua is a revered figure within Islam. And the return of Jesus is actually in the Quran as well. So that there is more of an affinity, and that is another chord that the Iranians have tried to stress, that in reality we've got far more in common than what should drive us apart. And the only thing driving us apart is this guy who thinks he's some kind of new Jesus. So I think they've done a sterling job. They're going to keep that coming, and they can pump these things out very, very quickly. It doesn't take a lot of production to do it. A few AI guys can do that very, very quickly. And what America has put out in response, like you said, the Grand Theft Auto stuff, the Top Gun stuff, all of that, it just does not compare. It's caught the attention of the world, and it's been a great way of Iran stating its case to the world. because everybody's watching them. That's what I think.
They are. And that's the bit Russia never did. Russia never entered the propaganda war.
Yeah.
Iran have often entered it, well, with a jump, with a massive entrance. And it's, yeah, it's good to watch. And like I said, we may get muted for that one on YouTube. But it's so key to what they are fighting back with, and the words were so the words and the terminology is so key to their whole point that it wasn't going to have the impact to try and play it without the sound, which is what I usually do to get around videos. But anyway, we'll see what happens. But stay with us. We will be back shortly. The second half will probably be, I know we usually are longer on the conspiracy side, but I've not got the same ability to tie red knots and bed bows into stuff. So it probably will be a shorter half, but stay with us and we will be back shortly with the second half of The Lone Gunman.
See him wasted in the saddle. He comes riding through your town. He's wearing yesterday's misfortunes like a smile. Once he had a future full of money, love, and dreams, but he spent like it was going out of style. But he just keeps on believing that for better or for worse, he's searching for a shrine he's never found. Never knowing if believing is a lesson or a curse, or if going up is worth coming down. He's a poet and a picker, he's a prophet and a pusher, he's a pilgrim and a preacher, and a problem when he's stoned. He's this walking contradiction, partly truth and partly fiction. He's taken every wrong direction on a lonely road back home. He has tasted good and evil in the bedrooms and the bars. He's traded in tomorrows for today. He's running from his demons and he's reaching for the stars, leaving everything he's loved along the way. And the world just keeps on turning, so for better or for worse, all he ever gets is older and around. From the rocking of his cradle to the rolling of the hearse, going up's not worth coming down. But he's a poet and a picker, he's a prophet and a pusher, he's a pilgrim and a preacher, and a problem when he's stoned. He's this walking contradiction, partly truth, he's partly fiction. He's taken every wrong direction on a lonely road back home.
Oh, Alex is missing. Well, welcome back to the Lone Gunman rides again. Alex is back. Okay.
Well filled in there. That was
My notes for the second half, which I didn't get printed off before we started.
Right. I thought you was keeping them in the toilet, something. Right. Okay.
No, and I don't have earphones on anyway, so it'd be okay if I did.
Right, yeah.
Yes, welcome back. We are back for the second half. We don't have a campfire. We don't have the Lone Gunman, but the internet is still a morose of nonsense, and you have found us, and we will do our best to look at some subjects. Now, the one thing we are going to start with today, and Glenn's subject for today, I'll let him start us off, is Agenda 2030. And I'll be taking a look after that at 15-minute cities. So I think it won't be too hard to link them together.
Yeah.
So if you want to get going straight away, we can come straight in with that one.
Okay. So what I thought I'd do was take what you might call an unbiased look at Agenda 2030, at the actual, what it actually says, what the organizations say, everything around that, because you do hear an awful lot of stuff piled onto this. So I thought I'll go back and look at the bare bones of Agenda 2030. So obviously we've all heard of Agenda 2030, and now this thing is in essence a series of 17 what are called SDGs, which stands for Sustainable Development Goals. And these Sustainable Development Goals were set out by the UN back in 2015. And they were adopted by all UN members. So I thought I'd ask a couple of questions firstly. I thought I'd ask the questions, why did the UN consider that we needed to adopt these goals on a global scale? And secondly, just how far down the road are we in terms of achieving them or adopting them? So let's just run down those 17 SDGs. Let's look at slide 1, please, Alex. So these are the Sustainable Development Goals. Number 1, no poverty. Number 2, zero hunger. Number 3, good health and well-being. Number 4, quality education. Number 5, gender equality. 6, clean water and sanitation. 7, affordable and clean energy. 8, decent work and economic growth. 9, innovation, industry, innovation and infrastructure. 10, reduced inequalities. Number 11, sustainable cities and communities. 12, responsible consumption and production. 13, climate action. 14, fairly vague, life below water. And 15, life on land. 16, peace, justice and strong institutions. And 17, partnerships for the goals. Okay. Now, reading through that list, many of the goals seem to be quite well-meaning, even worthwhile. So why is there such opposition to these goals? Well, we'll perhaps dig into some of these goals shortly. But first, to address the first question that I posed. Why did the UN consider that we needed them in the first place? Now, to do that, we must sort of go back and track where this process, where it came from, and where these goals began. And we can really say that they started here at slide 2. Well, not literally at slide 2, but this is the 1992 Earth Summit, so-called Earth Summit, United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, and which was held in Rio de Janeiro. Obviously, you can read the sign. Now, this is where the 178 countries adopted what was called Agenda 21, which refers to an agenda for the 21st century rather than the year 2021. It is the agenda for the 21st century. Now, the UN described this as a comprehensive plan of sustainable development to improve human lives and protect the environment. Now, the next major milestone came at the Millennium Summit. Let's look at slide 3. So these are the people, of the attendees at the Millennium Summit of September 2000. Now, this summit created 8 what were called Millennium Development Goals. And these were mostly aimed at poverty, hunger, child mortality, maternal health, HIV/AIDS and other diseases, environmental sustainability, and developing global partnerships, which we're going to come on to see is quite a big link in this wall, you might say, the big brick. Now, each goal had a number of sub-goals labeled A, B, C, and so on. One example would be Goal 8, develop global partnerships for development. And sub-goal 8E states, in cooperation with pharmaceutical companies, provide access to affordable essential medicines in developing countries. Or like 6B, achieve by 2010 universal access to treatments for HIV/AIDS for all that need it. And all of these 8 goals had a target achievement date of 2015. So then moving forward again, in 2002, the World Summit on Sustainable Development in South Africa adopted what was called the Johannesburg Declaration, the Johannesburg Declaration on Sustainable Development, to give it its full name. And this once again stressed more emphasis be put on what it called multilateral partnerships. Now, these partnerships were to be with multinational companies, non-government organizations, things like that, where their job was to implement Agenda 21 and the Millennium Development Goals. So we can see this moving from the sort of ideas, the formation stage, to identifying who was going to carry out on behalf of the UN these development goals, these sustainable goals. And these were to be multinational companies, non-government organizations, and governments of countries. Okay. Now then in 2012, the United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development, or what they called Rio +20, they adopted a document called The Future We Want, which we can see here at slide 4. The Future We Want. Okay. Now, this document set out the need to develop a precise set of goals to be codified for the post-2015 Sustainable Development Agenda. And this document was put together by what the UN was by now calling stakeholders. Again, these stakeholders were private companies, NGOs, whose role it was to create and implement the UN agenda. At this conference, the UN also created a new body called the UN High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development. Now, in 2013, moving on, the UN set up 30-member open working groups to develop proposals on the new Sustainable Development Goals for the post-2015 world. So eventually we come to 2015, and the UN and stakeholders met to negotiate these post-2015 development agendas. And this meeting it was this meeting, that produced the 17 Sustainable Development Goals in a document called Transforming Our World, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And a set of funding mechanisms were set up to implement these development goals, which was administered by yet another UN department called the Division for Sustainable Development Goals, which is a sub-department of another department of the UN, which is called the UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs. So there's an awful lot of committees and subcommittees and people involved in this. Now, every single year since 2015, the UN has produced a report based on globally acquired figures to indicate the progress of Agenda 2030. So let's have a look at some of the information contained in the latest one that we can read, which is the 2025 report, with a kind of view to trying to answer the second question, just how far down the road in terms of achieving these goals have we got, given that this year will be now 11 years into this agenda. Slide 5, please, Alex. So this is the cover of that report. Now, the report itself begins by stating, and I'll read that out, with the 2030 deadline only 5 years away, this report delivers a stark assessment. The Sustainable Development Goals have improved millions of lives, but the current pace of change is insufficient to achieve these goals by 2030. Now, I want you to consider, I want you to sort of think about this in the light of the annual cost to member states that are participating in this agenda. Each year since the inception of this program, it has cost between $5.4 trillion a year in the early years, and that rose to $6.4 trillion per year in the past few years. 6.4 trillion. That's a figure that's almost unimaginable. Now, the report states that there have been some negligible gains in the past decade. Since 2015, it states the world had made strides in expanding education, improving maternal health and child health. Effective prevention efforts have significantly reduced the burden in bringing the digital divide between rich and poor together. Let's have a look. Infectious diseases such as HIV and malaria have been has seen a measurable drop. Access to electricity has continued to grow, and renewable energy is now the fastest rising source of power worldwide. But it continues. Yet progress has been fragile and unequal. Millions still face poverty, extreme poverty, sorry. Slide 6, please, Alex. Millions still face extreme poverty, hunger, inadequate housing, and a lack of basic services. Women, people with disabilities, and marginalized communities continue to face systemic disadvantages. Escalating conflicts, climate chaos, rising inequalities, and soaring debt servicing costs are holding back further development, it states. Now, the report goes on to call for more action in 6 areas: food systems, energy access, digital transformation, jobs and social protection, and climate and biodiversity. It also stresses the need for more international cooperation and, surprise, surprise, increased investment to turn the 2030 agenda into a reality. So what we're looking at here is, so far, this agenda has cost the world upwards of $60 trillion, and has not really made much impact, it seems. Now, let's just put that a little bit in context compared to something else. Last year, remember, annually last year, we're looking at $6.4 trillion spent by this program. Last year, the entire arms spend of the world was $2.3 trillion. So we're looking at something that's bigger than the world arms trade. And as I say, since its inception, it's spent over $60 trillion. Okay. So what has this done? What impact has it made, perhaps, except to swell the coffers of these so-called stakeholders? So I ask, is it actually worth the cost? Are these goals, even the ones that seem innocuous, that seem laudable, are they worth this cost? Well, some would say, yes, it's worth the cost to eradicate world hunger, to eradicate world poverty, but it has not done this in 11 years and has not made a significant impact despite spending over $60 trillion. So should this agenda be scrapped or modified, perhaps, to concentrate on perhaps only the first couple of goals, those of poverty and hunger? Because when you look at some of the other things that are being done, we are not going to fix the climate. Slide 7. Please, Alex. Yeah, we're not going to fix the climate by any of the current ideas, which may very well be making life worse, like spraying a combination of chemicals and metals into the upper atmosphere, because this is actually polluting the planet. And net zero will not be achievable. And even if it was, it wouldn't fix the climate. We know that. So what Agenda 2030 is, in many ways, is slide 8, please, Alex. It is a gravy train. It is a gravy train that is funneling funds into companies and NGOs, many of whom do not have mankind's best interests at heart. It seems that way. And let's look at some of the other goals. Okay. Let's take goal 10, reduce inequalities. Inequality has gotten worse, markedly worse since 2015. Or goal 8, decent work and economic growth. Have I got to say anything on that? Have we seen decent work and economic growth suddenly transform? You know, have we now got better, more well-paid jobs in a more stable economy? No. Or even goal 9, industry, innovation, and infrastructure. They obviously don't mean for the so-called developed world, do they? Because industry has vanished, economic growth is non-existent, and decent work likewise is non-existent. Perhaps the only place you might find decent work is inside these bloated institutions. Now, need I even mention infrastructure? I mean, infrastructure is crumbling around us. Take a look. And the idea that you can improve the lot of the people in the developing world by making the rest of the world poorer is actually sheer lunacy. Now, lastly, a word on stakeholders. As I mentioned, I was going to talk a little about stakeholders. As I mentioned before, these include major corporations and institutions, institutional investment firms like BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard, people like that, and non-governmental organizations like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. But they're only one layer. They're only one layer in what is a multi-layered system that has been built around the Agenda 2030. Each of the member countries has what are referred to as relay actors, and their job is to carry out projects and initiatives that further the goals of Agenda 2030. And a major part of this is education. Each country's ministry of education or department of education, whoever is in charge of education in a country, is one of these relay actors. Now, their role is to ensure that the message is disseminated throughout the school and higher education system. Slide 9, please, Alex. And this chart demonstrates this perfectly. This is one of the 17 SDG goals. It's considered vital that young people view Agenda 2030 as not only beneficial, but vital to the planet's survival. And children are encouraged to think of ways that they can participate and help. So shaping young minds is a vital brick in the wall, you might say. And this education doesn't stop with children, it goes all the way to the top. Government ministers attend meetings and seminars where they learn what their role is in implementing the goals, and they discuss ways of implementing them. Slide 10, please, Alex. And these are German MPs at Agenda 2030 education session. So it goes from the bottom to the top. The education and what you might call indoctrination process is a big part, and it is exactly one of the SDGs. It's goal 4. So just kind of wrap it all up. Agenda 2030 is basically a vast and overarching system that aims to influence every aspect of countries' life, not only their life, their work, their education, their industry, their agriculture, in order to fulfill the plans of the UN. It consists of large cogs, such as the UN itself, and the WEF and the WHO. They're the sort of big cogs in the machine, and also the legal bodies of the UN. And under this are individual governments and political parties of all stripes. Then you've got the institutional investors, the banks, the large corporations, the hedge funds, and then individual sort of companies. And then you've got individual councils, cities and town bodies. Then you move down to individual industries. You've got the trade unions, you've got the schools, you've got the universities, all working as part of what is called the pyramid of Agenda 2030, which we kind of visualize here at slide 11. There we go. So this is the kind of an ideas pyramid. You've got the vision and the principles, the results framework, which is central to everything. The results must be central. You've got the implementation arm, and then you've got all the follow-up and review to see how well they're supposedly doing, which is not very well considering the vast cost of this project. Okay, so even if we say that that the UN, in all well-meaning terms, have embarked on this project for the benefit of the world in a lot of respects, it hasn't worked so far. There is no chance that we will get there by 2030, and to a large degree, this plan has been usurped and is being used by other actors, you might say, for different goals. That might be as simple as profiteering, but it might also be more sinister goals, all done under this umbrella of Agenda 2030. So that's an overview. So as Ian would say, a 40,000 feet view of Agenda 2030. All right.
Yeah. Okay, well, it's someone we hear a lot about without actually looking back often to what you see on the surface. And it's also one that to me, it strikes me as one they use a lot to try and brand us as crazy conspiracy theorists. Because on the surface, on the words, you see what's not to like about that. That's the whole attitude they give. I've got a few notes I took, but before I get on to that, let's hear Kia's views on this.
Well, just well presented again, Glenn, I've got to say. And like, I've been looking through these goals as well. And like, can you read between the lines, or do you just go by the language they're using? And they use very specific language. I've spoken about this before. So even number 1, no poverty, end poverty in all its forms everywhere. How are they going to do that, right? If you're looking at it from maybe a conspiratorial point of view.
Yeah.
Zero hunger, end hunger, achieve food security, improve nutrition, and sustainable agriculture. It doesn't seem like they're doing that at all over the last few years. They're trying to curb agriculture.
Yeah.
In across Europe and probably most of the world that I'm not so sure on, because I'm based over here in Europe. Good health and well-being. How are they promoting that exactly? I'd like to know how they're doing that. Is that with making all the processed food the cheapest in the supermarket and making all the healthy food more expensive? You know, you've got to pay what if you want the something's best or something's own. You've got to pay an extra £2 for the not fed this chicken or the organically grown this, and but you're paying 90 pence for a bag of Cheetos or something, right? It's crazy. And then clean water and sanitation. Is that for us, or is that for the data centers that are popping up everywhere?
Yeah.
And then if I'm just going through this, access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. It's over the last 5-6 years, I think we've all noticed that our bills have doubled. So that doesn't seem to be happening at all, unless we plan to bring everybody down to the same level, right? Economic growth, etc., etc. Industry, innovation, infrastructure, and foster innovation for what? We all know that AI is coming basically to take most of our jobs and robotics. So I can't see how this agenda, the way they're wording it, is going anywhere in the direction they are saying. And I would also say on number 11, sustainable cities and communities. I'm sure we'll get on to that in a bit. That's going to be your 15-minute cities.
Yeah.
They call it sustainable, but that you could call that an open prison, right? It's madness. The way they word this, it sounds lovely. It sounds like a poem, right? But if you read between the lines, I mean, and partnership for the goals. And that's like the whole UN, right? And like Glenn was saying, who are the partnerships? The NGOs, the hedge funds, the multinational companies. I mean, I don't believe I'm in partnership for these goals. And just one final thing, if we're going to make everybody have good water, good living, access to food, like equality, then why are there thousands upon thousands of food banks in the UK that more and more people are turning to just to live, if this is supposed to be a sustainable and achievable goal in, what, 2-3 years?
Exactly. Exactly. I think that was very well summed up, because what you've done there is expose the cracks in the system, and it's these goals. Some of these goals seem exactly like you were just saying there, on the surface, to be quite laudable things. Wouldn't it be great? Every Miss World, whoever was, said, what would you like to achieve? Oh, end world hunger. Well, the UN decided to be Miss World. We're going to end world hunger. Well, they haven't. They've been at it. They've thrown the kitchen sink at this. What can you buy with $60 trillion? An awful lot of bureaucracy, it seems, and an awful lot of these projects that achieve nothing. Stupid ideas of filling the sky with soot or whatever, filling the sky with metals. Stupid ideas like, I don't know, blanketing the world oceans and cutting off the sunlight, and ridiculous ideas that I don't know, building giant space umbrellas. This is all on the climate side of it. All not only pie in the sky, but downright dangerous things to do. And this is where Agenda 30 has gone wrong, is in the implementation side of it. The implementation by people who look upon this either as a cash cow or look at it as a way to achieve other things that they would like to achieve. And these agendas have been twisted. Now, some would believe that it was always going to be that way, and that this is only a sort of friendly mask on what is in fact a dangerous agenda. You can take it however you want to see it, but at the end of the day, everything is you judge everything by the bottom line, don't you? How good is your company doing? You judge by the bottom line. And if you were to take this take Agenda 2030 as a corporation, you could say, well, let's have a look what we've achieved and let's have a look how much we've spent. It's fucking bankrupt, and it's bankrupt in the world. And just as you were saying, Keir, there, and that rang a bell with me because I've heard this before, the idea isn't to level everyone up. The idea is to level a large part of the world down so that we all meet at a certain level. So I think that's, that means less heating for you. Like the German Chancellor said, well, just don't use energy, All right, that's fine. Just don't use it. No, I don't think I'll heat my home. I don't think I'll turn my gas cooker on. I don't think I'll do that. Fine, when every meal that you ever eat is brought to you by a servant, and you don't have to worry about these things. But for the ordinary people, it's not achievable. So anyway.
And Ursula von der Leyen said just the other day, the cheapest energy you have is the energy you don't use.
Yeah.
That's like, great. That's fine. Yeah. All right. Thanks.
Just don't use it.
We could save.
So simple but effective. Sorry.
It is effective, but we could save a hell of a lot of energy. All we need to do is turn the lights off in the European Parliament, in Westminster, in Holyrood, in the Welsh Assembly, in the Knesset, in all of these institutions across Europe, across the West, worldwide, save a fortune. And do they really do anything for us? Because I doubt they do. But yeah, the problem is you did, like you said, a 40,000 foot overview. But what they rely on is you doing that thing that Ian talks about all the time with the Bayer tapestry. They split them into little individual goals. Is that to make them achievable? Is that to make them analyzable? Or is that to distract you from the big picture? And to me, it feels much more to distract you from the big picture, because nothing sounds bad in that until you start looking into the minuity. Nothing sounds questionable. It all sounds flowery language. It all sounds political language. But to me, it's the Sabutio player. It's the nudge effect. And we will teach you, we will train you to see how good these are going to be. We'll teach you to know that. We'll teach you to look at partnerships. We'll teach you to look at what these NGOs, what these non-government organizations are doing to help the world. Your altruistic purposes, but when you start looking at the names, when you start seeing who's backing it, when you start seeing the lockstep, that's when it becomes questionable. How many political leaders have we seen sporting this badge and sporting that they're but supporting this agenda? And if it was all well and good, and if it was all perfect, that would make sense. But the thing we have to realize sometimes is not everything is a plan, and maybe a lot of the people working on this thing genuinely believe they are working for the good. It's the thing with the UN. We all know the UN is a paper tiger. We all know it does nothing and it's words on paper.
Yeah.
But the UN General Assembly and the UN Security Council are not the same thing. Same with the EU in many ways. The European Parliament and the Commission are not the same thing. And the power rests with a small minority. It rests with that small group of people at the top. And they've spent, like you say, 6.4 trillion on doing next to nothing. Or they've got the education done because that's what they wanted. It was all about in many ways. This year, yeah. And then they're sorting the digital divide. So you've all got access to the control mechanism. So you've all got access to what they want you to hear the agenda, to hear the propaganda. And maybe they've done a bit on child health. Have they done a bit of child health, or have they just rolled out more of the pharmaceutical industry's products across the world to children in Africa and India that they're testing them on? It's a lot of money to be spent on quangos, and I will come back to that. These are just my notes from what you were saying, but there seems to me a lot of money to spend on quangos. But let's look at some of those goals, because some of those goals are quite concerning, and you've covered some of this. But get immediately on free, it's all about the pharmaceutical industry. It's all about their profits rolling out. It's all about, well, it's been talked about. They've used the terminology. When you look at the people behind this, they've used the terminology that we can control population with vaccines. They've used that over again. 4, educate. They say education. I say indoctrination. I'll leave it there. 5, gender. I am sick to death of hearing the word gender. I am sick to death, and I've said this too many times, of hearing the word misogyny. It doesn't exist at the level they're passing it. It's fucking nonsense. I will never choose the fucking bear. It's fucking nonsense. And it is not every woman. I'm not saying horrendous things don't happen to some people, because they do. People have suffered and people have had horrendous things happen to them. but it is a minority. It's a minute minority. And it's all about divide and conquer. So they keep going on, but they keep pushing this one. And it drives me around the bend because it's dangerous from where I see. The way they keep pushing the whole anti-male agenda. And there is an anti-male agenda. To me, it is very, very dangerous. Strong men are not a danger to women. Weak men are. And they do not want a strong male population because it scares them. It terrifies them, and it probably should, but I hate the agenda and it does my head in. But the green agenda, number 7, the whole green agenda, the whole nonsense,
it is
trying to push and making a lot of money by it, but on the side of it, but trying to push for against a climate change that isn't what they imply it is. And is not caused by the things that they imply it's caused by, or ask why is the climate changing across the solar system, not just on this planet. 9, innovation, like you said already, AI taking our jobs. 10, inequality. Well, inequality is not improving, and it's not meant to, like you said, leveling us down. Exactly what you said, Gia. 11, smart. And I'll get on to 15-minute cities and smart cities in a second. 12. I can't even remember what the 12th one was, but I've just written down control because that's where it comes to. That's the key point.
The consumption and production. So responsible consumption.
This is the responsible bit, yeah.
So
again, it's the control. Yeah? What is responsible? Who defines that? And that definition is where the control comes in.
Yeah.
And then 13, I think, was back to the climate change thing. And the whole climate change, the whole CO2 agenda to me gets me because it's to me, it's the years ago when you had the midwife come down and they sent the nervous husband to boil the kettle. It was the boiling water, not because they needed it, but because it gave them something to do. It's the hide under your desks with a nuclear war. It's the new one. It's seal up. You'll get this tape and seal up your windows. Seal up your windows and stay inside for longer than you will have breathable air, mind you. But seal up your windows. It's busy work. It's distraction. And the whole CO2 nonsense is the same. The climate is changing. It's not a hoax. And they're quite happy for you to think it's a hoax. But it's not being changed by CO2. It's being changed by changes in the solar system. It's being changed. Well, it's being changed in many ways by nemesis, as well as the sun going batshit crazy, as well as the solar minimums, as well as the circular changes. It's not how many times you might fly for 2 weeks in Ibiza. And even if it was, it'd have a lot more to do with the private planes jetting back and forth across this world than your 2-week holiday. But 14 and 15 is what struck me this time. And I've read them before and I've never thought about them. But with what we've looked at since the last time I read them, I find them very interesting because 14 is life below water and 15, life on land. And that's all the actual titles say.
Yeah.
But are we looking at living below water? Because we know it's been considered, we know it's been talked about. And are we looking at what life on land will look like? Or maybe even under the land? So I find that interesting because I've never really thought about them in those sense, but some of the things we've looked at since made me think. But just the final point I want to make, and the final thing that struck me, because I'd never heard the figures before until you said them today. 6.4 trillion for a few educational packages, for a few meetings, for a few jollies. No. I'm going to call bullshit on that. And I'm going to ask what that 6.4 trillion is actually funding?
That's
That's my thoughts anyway.
a great question. I've got to jump in there, sorry, and just say that's a great question. 6.4 trillion. Where the fuck does all the money go? The same with the global arms trade. Where does all the money go? Where does all the money go that goes into Ukraine? And there's 70 billion, 90 billion, 40 billion. We're given, what is it, 4 billion a year or something for the next. Didn't Keir Starmer say, not this Keir, but Keir Starmer, didn't Keir Starmer say 4 billion a year for 100 years or something mad like that? Right?
Yeah.
Just last year.
Shoveling it down the black hole.
Yeah, well, into someone's fucking pocket, I'll tell you. If I could just finally jump back to point number 3, if I can just remind myself here, for the good health and well-being, ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all ages. And that brings me back again to the Princess of Europe, Ursula von der Leyen, or Ursula von der Leyen. She was just recently gave a speech on the telly box the other day, saying that 150 million, a quarter of all Europeans are unvaccinated. 150 million, she calls it. Right? And she has actually said again, which I couldn't believe because I thought we were probably past this, but it looks like we're just in the middle of it, saying that there should be a conversation now about all Europeans being mandated to take vaccines, right? And you wonder, and like that's like, I thought that everybody woke up to this and they're like, you can't do this anymore. But it looks like they're going to try and push it again, which is fucking mental. If people haven't woken up yet, they really, really need to start looking at some of this stuff. But then you ask, where does the money go? And so Ursula von der Leyen, the head of the European Union, unelected official, is now obviously spouting whatever agenda, and most of it's this 2030 agenda. And you ask, where does the money go? And she approved a check for £71 million during COVID to get 400 million odd vaccines into Europe. So that was 71 million of taxpayers' money that she rubber stamped. And it turns out that the money went to a firm called Orgenesis, which just happens to be owned by a German doctor called Heiko van der Leyen. Which coincidentally, I'm sure it's no coincidence, is her husband.
Odd that.
So that's 71 million of let's just say it's your money, right? Of your money has been rubber stamped by the wife of someone that runs a company, or Genesis, and drum roll please, who is the company owned by? Pfizer. So there you go. Where does the money go? Down the back of the couch, right? I mean, I think I'm in the wrong job. I need to be working for a pharmaceutical company, an NGO, a Quango, or maybe the council to see what font needs to be put on the new sign in a street, and that'll cost like £3 million or something. You know, the money just falls through your hands like sand, right? Well, if you're a politician or in the upper echelons of government, it seems like money just disappears, right?
Yeah. Can I just jump in there, Keir? Recently, the town down the road, where I do have a house, recently became a city, the city of Doncaster. And they had a council that was called Doncaster Metropolitan Borough Council. That was the old body. And they spent a fortune on changing the name. And the company that they employed came up with 2 options that the councillors had to choose from. And this, like as I say, cost an absolute fortune. And one was Doncaster City Council, and the other one was the City of Doncaster Council.
The second one, much better.
They went for the City of Doncaster Council. That's what it's now called. God knows what consultation firm earned out of that, but it wouldn't have been cheap. So that's an example of where money goes. It goes into these unelected bodies, into these NGOs, into organizations that are basically sponges for this kind of funding. And you've got to look no further than the biggest sponge in Britain, Serco, who have sponged up more contracts than anyone else. And I think they've got something to do with the royal family. I can't remember. I'm sure that they've got connections to our royal family. So this is where the money's going.
Yeah.
And
I don't know. I think a certain amount certainly is. A certain amount, it definitely goes into back pockets, as we know. I don't know it's one better, but I can kind of do one better on the local councils, and it wasn't the local council anymore. But I've said before, I volunteered at Basing House, and it used to be under Hampshire County Council. And then it was taken over by a charitable organisation they created, Hampshire Cultural Trust. And they spent, again, the usual amount of fortune getting people to design the logo, reprinting all the literature, which, and I'm not saying in general they didn't do some good things. They supported some of the heritage of the council, of the county. Yeah, they spent a fortune reprinting all the literature, and they spelt Hampshire wrong. Hampshire Cultural Trust spelt Hampshire wrong.
Not surprised. Not surprised at all.
But no, it's there is a level of insanity in it, but I do wonder, beyond the payouts, beyond all of it, where the money's gone. We've talked about black budgets, and we've talked about how do you fund a breakaway civilization. It's never occurred to me before because I've never heard the figures before. I've never looked into them. But when I hear 6.4 billion, 6.4 trillion, you said, didn't you? Like that.
6.4
I wonder how much
just rolls off the tongue.
Just like that, yeah. I wonder how much of that goes into funding a breakaway civilization.
I know
things.
Start an NGO, maybe.
Yeah. But the other thing is, you talk about Vandalay, and the other bit, I know that you've probably seen this as well, but there's been a number of court cases recently where countries have, because when they made that deal, they had something like 10 per person. In the numbers they were using equated to about 10 per person of everybody in the EU. And a lot of countries never went through that number of vaccines, and they didn't take them and they didn't buy them. And Pfizer have taken them to court recently and won the court case to say that whether they need them or not, they signed the agreement, they have to pay up and buy the rest of them. So it makes me wonder if they're suddenly talking about mandating them, whether there's a partial financial element of that.
We've paid for them already.
Yeah.
All right.
What gets me, to be honest, is some of the sorry about the bell. Some of the responses that have been driven by this agenda. Now it's madness enough that we've decided, we're not going to drill for oil. We're not going to, because when you look at the North Sea, you've got the Norwegian section, you've got the British section, and you've got the Dutch section, all of which have the drilling rights to those areas of the sea. So we in Britain have decided, we're not going to drill. But the Dutch went one stage further. They had a lot of gas extraction rigs in their section, and they took them down and poured concrete down the wells to ensure that they couldn't fucking well be used. And now we've got an energy crisis. Surprised? Fuck's sake.
But we say we won't drill and then buy it from Norway.
Yeah, then we buy it from Norway.
Taking it from the same source.
It's just the same field. Yeah. Madness. Beyond madness. But that is the result of this education that all of these ministers have had. they've obviously taken that message and thought, well, what can we do that proves that we're implementing this? I know, we'll cut off our own foot, you know,
Yeah, pretty much.
and then say, look, there it is, we've done it. Tick that box. Dog thinks it's feeding time.
Yeah. Well, we are running a little bit late. I knew we were going to.
Yeah.
We never managed to move this along without Ian keeping us on track.
No,
we have a tendency to go too long, but I will quickly do the 50-minute cities, and then we will take your comments on that, and then we will round up. Because this is another one, and this is another one which on the surface of things looks all well and good, looks all very very happy for people. What's the problem? And it's the idea that you have a 50-minute city. Now, this is the official argument for. The official argument is it's basically just an urban planning model where everything a resident needs is in, everything they need for their daily life is within and can be accessed within a 50-minute walk or a 15-minute bike ride. And this is the argument that you don't need to jump in your car. You can get there on your foot. You can get there on a bike. And it will be designed so that local areas will have everything civilians need within this distance. And the argument, and they're open about it, to a certain degree, the intention is to reduce the use of cars and instead promote walking, cycling, and the use of public transport that will all be healthier for you and better for the environment. Now, they crop up under things called 20-minute cities, 20-minute neighbourhoods, and all of these other variations. Now, the most recent incarnation of this concept started in 2016, and it was revived by this guy who's Professor Carlos Moreno. Now, he's also Paris City Hall's special envoy for smart cities, because these are effectively, supposedly, two separate concepts. But apparently this guy's also the envoy to Paris for smart cities. Now, it kind of started gaining traction in the wake of the COVID pandemic, after everybody conveniently had been staying at home and working from home and not being allowed to go out long enough to get any further than your 15 minutes. And in some places not being allowed to park anywhere outside your area. Oddly enough, it started gaining traction again at that point. But the actual concept dates back to Ebenezer Howard's Garden Cities of Tomorrow, which was actually published in 1902. And it promoted the idea of the neighbourhood unit. It was introduced by urban planner Clarence Perry in the 1920s. And in many ways, it was comparable to the compact city idea, which was a smaller urban planning model that emerged in the 1970s. Through the decades, through the century and more, reintroduced under different names, different ideas, but the same overarching concepts. Again, like the UN SDGs, were these brought in with nefarious purposes, or have they just been used? And I can't answer that question any more than I can for the SDGs in many ways. But more recently, it was also come up and was also used in the town of Poundbury in Dorset, which was built in 1994 and championed by Charles III, oddly enough. Because this is the key with these things. You see the same names, the same organisations, the same groups, the same people supporting them. And that's always the suspicion to me. But this was seen, Poundbury was seen as an early incarnation of the 15-minute neighbourhood. Now, in 2021, I say the modern founder, Carlos Moreno, he kind of expanded on the concept to basically listing the 6 essential functions that residents should have access to within the 15 minutes, within a 15-minute journey of their home, which he said was living, working, commerce, healthcare, education, and entertainment. What would you possibly need beyond that? And that's the whole argument of it. Now, defenders of the 15-minute cities, they argue that the global population is growing exponentially, that more and more areas are becoming urbanized and population density is increasing. They argue that urban planners need to align the demand for infrastructure with the need for sustainable development. And we're back to those words again, sustainable development. And they argue that the built environment is responsible for around 40% of global CO2 emissions per year, and that we have an opportunity to avoid sustainable processes to adopt sustainable processes even in the design, planning and creation of our cities that can make our net zero ambitions a reality. I'm not sure anything can make our net zero things a reality, but that's what they are saying. Now, there are already, and this is a bit people kind of miss sometimes, there are already 10 15-minute cities, or what they consider cities built using the 15-minute rule. And that is Paris, that's Melbourne, that's Ottawa, Barcelona, Shanghai, Bogota in Colombia, Portland, Oregon, Milan, the Line in Saudi Arabia, and Edmonton. And these, they reckon, are already built using the 15-minute, the idea of 15-minute neighborhoods. So it's all a good thing, yeah? Convenience, everything you want on your doorstep. Well, the thing is, the 15-minute cities kind of came into mainstream view during the whole COVID, when conveniently, like I say, everybody was suddenly working from home and being told to stay in your local environment. Now, these cities, and this is their argument, they say were anybody objecting to it? What could you possibly object to? You're just a crazy conspiracy theorist. You're seeing something that's just good for the people. You're seeing that as a totalitarian plot. You're seeing things that aren't there. You're just conspiracy theorists. You're just far-right influencers. And those two words keep cropping up whenever you say anything against it. And they say, oh, you're seeing things that aren't there. You're just going on about nonsense about climate lockdowns. You're going on about restrictions on travel. We've never said any of these things. We've just said it's for the good of the people. It's having it in your local thing. It's to produce it's to promote a lack of pollution. It's to promote you not needing to use your car, you to be able to get out into your environment and do what's best for you, your life-work balance, and all these other buzzwords that they've used all the way through them. And if you think this is some broader scheme by international bodies or by the World Economic Forum, you're just a crazy old conspiracy theorist. Mind you, those crazy old conspiracy theorists made them change the name in the city of Oxford, and the city of Oxford suddenly stopped calling it a 15-minute city. They haven't got rid of the idea. They haven't got rid of the plan. They just not using the terminology because the terminology has become toxic and incendiary. So they say 5 things it's supposed to do. And this is my question, because maybe I'm a crazy conspiracy theorist, maybe I'm not. But this is what I want answers to from their theory. Because to me, it all comes down to this. How and what do they intend to do with them? Are they a carrot, or will they be a stick? They want less reliance on vehicles. So are they just going to provide the things close to you? Are they just going to give you the services so you can choose not to drive your vehicle? Or are they going to legislate reduced use of your vehicle? when they're talking it's going to need it to bring about net zero. It looks very much to me like that will be legislation. And what about that? Why do you need a 15-minute cities? And if they do legislate and if they do use the stick for that, what's the point of 15-minute cities? I don't drive now. I can get on a train to go anywhere I want to go. I'm using public transport. I'm using my feet. I don't have a bike, but I'm using my feet and I'm using public transport. But if I have to be within my 15 minutes, if they are going to use the stick, that means I can't jump on the train to Glasgow. I can't jump on the train somewhere further afield. But that action is using public transport. So why is that still a problem if they use the stick? They want reduced pollution and better air quality. But if you're going to duplicate the services, the industry, well, we saw the plan for Gaza, the data centers. If you're going to duplicate that into every different environment, how is that going to be less pollution? How is that going to be better air quality? Because instead of having one area of the town, which tends to be the industrial area, you've got them in every 15-minute cities. You're duplicating that building. How are you reducing the energy consumption if you have to duplicate it over and over again? It makes no sense to me. It's supposed to boost local economies. But if you're not able to go outside of it, you've only got a limited economy paying into that. Now, I take orders from, I've taken orders outside the European Union, but I take orders from all across Europe. We've taken orders before when I was involved in the whole thing with the rings and everything. We've taken orders from Qatar. We've taken orders from Nigeria. This whole, you can only have your commerce within your local 15 minutes will not boost the economy. It will limit SMEs. But of course, they want to limit SMEs. And I bet you the global conglomerates, I bet you the large companies, they might have a branch in each 15-minute city, but I doubt they're going to be limited to that city. Whereas your SMEs, your small locals, are not going to have that ability because they're not going to be allowed to go out of their 15-minute cities. They're not going to have that ability to control, to grow. And it's supposed to enhance public health and well-being. Well, maybe we should use our cars less. And I'm not saying that from a pollution point of view. I'm saying that because people jump in their cars to drive 5 minutes down the shop, and maybe it would be a health benefit to walk occasionally. Like I said, I don't have a choice, so it's easy for me to say that. But not everybody can, and not everybody has that ability or that possibility. Will it enhance public health and well-being? I don't see the well-being side. But again, it depends whether you use the carrot or the stick. And improved social opportunities, well, when you're limiting people under a ceiling in a very small area, are you improving social opportunities or are you limiting them? That was a very timely bell. Is it about convenience or is it about control? I know where I lean to what the plan is. What do you guys think?
Well, the concentration and what all councils seem to be obsessed with is putting up more and more and more cameras. Cameras on every corner, cameras on every road, cameras. I can drive through our city and I'm never off a camera, never. Cameras all the way. What are all these cameras for? Yeah, with their number plate recognition and all this stuff. They're nothing but, they're not there for any good. They're not there just to monitor the traffic or anything like that. it's all part of the system whereby your movements can be tracked. And we've seen this with Oxford, with the proposals for you get so many permits to travel out, the city being divided up like a pie, with zone A, zone B, zone C, zone D. Well, I can't remember how many zones they've got. And you get so many permits to travel outside of your zone, and you get so many permits per year to leave the city. Who died and made them fucking God? Who could tell me how many times I want to go? I'm sorry about the stripes. It's the blinds. It's really sunny. Who decided how many? No, I will decide. And if I can't afford the fuel because it's, I don't know, £500 a gallon, then maybe I'll restrict my own movements. And I wouldn't put that idea aside either. You know, we can't infringe on people. We can't physically stop people going, traveling around in their cars. So we'll make fuel so expensive that it's prohibitive for you to do so. So people will self-limit. And so I don't discount that idea at all. I doubt we'll ever see fuel prices at the levels they were, only a couple of months ago ever again, because it suits the agenda to make fuel extremely expensive. And therefore, that suits the plan. And let's just look at this idea of everything being available within 15 minutes of where you live. Within 15 minutes of where most people live these days, there is a dearth of shops. That you've got the supermarket maybe that's down the road somewhere that takes probably more than 15 minutes to reach. All the small local shops are gone virtually. You know, there's no greengrocers hardly. There's no butchers hardly. There's very little of that. You know, it's fine if you want to go to the vape shop, or if you want to go to the bookies, or if you want to go to the Turkish barbers. There's plenty of those, but many of those are money laundering outlets. But in order for this to work, you not only do you have to have the infrastructure, you have to ensure that infrastructure is sufficient for the people that live there. Now we've got in Doncaster, there is one hospital. There is one major hospital that serves the entire city. But not only does it serve the city, it serves all the postcodes which go out for miles. And so many people have to travel far, far longer than 15 minutes to reach the central hospital. And so they've tried to partner up with other hospitals. So we're now in a conglomeration of hospitals which are meant to ease this burden. But it's still not enough. Most people do not live within 15 minutes walking or cycling distance of a hospital. So I don't know how they're going to get over that problem. This seems to me fine if you're building a brand new city, exactly like you mentioned, like Saudi Arabia's line. That is designed entirely along those grounds. And not only that, nobody wants to go outside because it's in the middle of the fucking desert. So, you know, why would you want to leave? Why would you want to leave? There's nowhere to go. So it's a lot of this is pie in the sky. And if you look back at previous attempts to change the way people live, you end up with Milton Keynes.
Yes.
Which is an abomination. There are more roundabouts than people. Absolutely.
Roundabouts of Swindon.
Yeah. Swindon's the same. Yeah, I've done courses in Swindon. They're absolutely horrible. So I don't know. It's a stupid idea, but it's a technocratic idea. It's a control idea. And if you end up with, I don't know, say 3/4 of the population on universal basic income, there won't be those people will have to, you know, limit where they can go and what they can spend. So you know, you can see how those two ideas mesh together. Many, many things.
Yeah. I won't get into Milton Keynes because I'll be here too long, but there is more to it than that, because if that's built along those lines, it's also built as using sacred geometry, because there is a lot in Milton Keynes about the direction that the main streets go, and it's to do with the equinox and to do with the thing. So there's a lot two-sided in that, which would fit in with it being part of their whole attitude, their whole agenda, and their whole plan, because of the things that they things that they believe in many ways as well.
That might be worth looking. Yeah, I might look into that.
That's interesting thought, because I hadn't considered that under the 15-minute cities or under the area, but it is, because it's built on it's built almost on an American design, in your way you've got your two directions of your streets. Basically, you don't have the meandering roads that you have in most older villages. You have, I can't think what they call it, but you have
they're a grid
perpendicular to it. But that'd be interesting to look into that. Actually, I might have to have another look at that. What was I going to say? But yes, it is. It's that way. It's that way that they do everything. Nothing is accidental. Nothing is. I don't buy that these things are just for your benefit. I buy control in every ounce of it. Like you say, surveillance levels point towards that. So no, I'm not buying convenience.
All right, let's take this to extremes. And remember when we talked about China. I remember when we talked about the technology that they were looking into, the ability to monitor your brain while you're at work. This is what they want. They want to monitor you 24/7. They want to know what you're dreaming about, what you're thinking about, and China essentially now in some parts has got pre-crime. Their AI works out whether your behavior is suspicious. It tracks who you're associating with. This would never. I mean, this we would all be in jail. This is subversive. We couldn't do that. Couldn't do that in China. But they've handed over control of that system, which collates all this information and makes decisions based on it that are then enacted upon by the police. And the police go and arrest people for basically having the wrong associations or loitering too long in a certain place, or having strange meetings and things like that. They don't like any of that, and that's straight out of 1984. So that, if you want to look at the future vision, and everybody wants to copy this model. All of the aspiring technocrats and dictators around the world want to copy what China has done. And no doubt our fuckwits want the same for us.
You do. And this is a bit people... Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
this is a bit people miss. They see China as the people behind all of this, and it's not. It's our own governments idolizing what they've got.
Exactly.
They see, we want that. We want that level of control. And it would be used to greater effect and to even worse level if our fuckwits get it in place than it even is in China, because we know full well that whatever China wants, and China wants its own level of control. I'm not saying it doesn't. It has its own ideas of new world orders, but it doesn't seem to want to kill its population like we do. It doesn't seem to want to eradicate vast quantities of its people like the Western version of the New World Orders do. Maybe it already has them under some level of control that it doesn't see the need to do that. but it doesn't seem to want to murder everybody, to depopulate everybody. But it does. But we do, and we do want a total control grid. And we're not going to get onto digital ID or all the rest of the ways they will bring that in. But that's what's at the end of the day, that's what's about with their agendas. That's what it's about with their 15-minute cities control, or in my opinion, it is. That is my opinion. That is not stuff I can prove. But in my opinion, it is pure control. It is 1984 on steroids. It is seeing that as a plan of action instead of a warning.
Yeah, I've got to say, I agree. And I would say I would be in favor of 15-minute cities for argument's sake if I was rich, right?
Yeah.
Because that's going to be a 15-minute gated community with the best doctors, the best houses, the best parks, the best roads, right? And then you go to the other end of the scale, and you've got, this is like Hunger Games, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Districts.
Yeah.
And you're going to have the poor districts all the way up to the bloody rich districts, because they're not going to mix the 15-minute cities with the rich guys over here, and 50 minutes away you got the plebs, right? And then that raises the question, well, if there's a drama, or say there's a shortage of anything, fuel, food, whatever, which 15-minute city is going to get served first? Who's the most important, right? You know what I mean? And then with Glenn saying as well, with cameras everywhere, I mean, I'm surprised. I was waiting to say I'm surprised there's not a camera in my house, but I'm speaking to one now.
There is.
Well, they put one there, man.
Not just that one.
Yeah, but then you're going to have a camera. They're getting rid of all your diesel, petrol cars. They want all your cars electric, connected to the internet. So if you jump in your car and then you don't have enough, say, for argument's sake, carbon credits to go into another district, your car will just stop. And I'll be like, no, you're not. The government says no, right? And you'll get a message flashing up in your bloody screen. This is like the near future, saying you cannot pass this invisible line, right? And then during COVID, they had the 15-minute cities. I think you said it was Shanghai, down there in China. And there was videos coming out of people screaming because they couldn't get any food. They couldn't leave from 3 miles of their house. It was gated off between bloody alleyways, and people were trying to scramble over fences just to get out to go and get some food, right? It's just it's mental. This is the way we're going, and I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon. And I think I said previously with this 2030 agenda, it was all on course until Putin decided to go into Ukraine. And then everything stopped. And now they've had to re-accelerate it again. And now this is why time seems to be going so bloody fast, and everything seems to be happening all the time. And then I'll ask the question, is part of Agenda 2030, and of course this is the first step to Agenda 2040, then Agenda 2050. But is this why we're seeing all the oil refineries, gas refineries, all the production, the fertilizer in the Middle East going, in Russia going, in Mexico, in Australia, in America, there's refineries getting blown up? It's just, is lockdown bloody 3.0 a way to be honest? And like, stay at home, we're not telling you to do it, but we'll mandate you to do it. And if you drive without a decent reason, we're going to arrest you in your car because you decided to go to the park and sit for an hour, right? Because leisure travel is not allowed anymore, right? This seems to be the way we're going at a bloody breakneck speed, and they seem hell-bent on doing it and implementing it. And European politicians have already come out. I think it was a German politician a couple of years ago that says, we don't care what the voters think, we're going to do it anyway. Right? So who are you voting for? Why are you voting for these people? Because nothing changes. Nothing fucking changes. And they're all part of the same fucking, or two cheeks of the same arse, or part of the same agenda. If you vote for Labour or Tories, you're going to get the same fucking thing, right? Or Reform, or Lib Dems, or the Green Party. It just, they are all controlled by whoever is setting these Agenda 2030s. They say it's all voted on by the UN, but this is higher powers at work here. So what's going to happen when you're in your 50-minute cities? You're going to be stuck in a slum somewhere, right? And I remember they're lowering everybody down, not trying to raise everybody up like they say in the bloody news. So everyone's going to be lowered down, and then you're going to have these gated communities with luxury, and everyone else is on rations and owning nothing and being happy, right?
It's peach trees from Judge Dredd. You know what's
Yeah,
Judge
great reference.
Yeah, good reference, because it's Mega City 1, where you've got all the population crammed into these in these mega cities, basically lawless, hungry, extremely draconian, harshly policed, to the point where there is no justice apart from the judges who decide on the spot whether you live or die. So I know that's an extreme vision, but often these visions are prophetic. These ideas. So
maybe not that extreme.
No,
like in the coming future, and then you're going to have some guy in the street that's judge, jury, and executioner.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, why not?
Maybe.
Why not put sort of metals and nanobots in people's bodies so that
they'd never do that.
No, they'd never do that, would they? Let's put all this shit in your body so that we can affect it with I don't know. Yeah, radio sort of towers, microwave towers, or even weird cameras that appear more like lasers than cameras. I don't know. All of that, all dangerous shit.
Yeah, you'll be telling me they can see through walls and use your Wi-Fi to see in your house next, Glenn. I mean, wow.
Going to do that next. Ridiculous. Your fridge is fucking spying on you.
Your fridge, and chatting with your toaster about you when you're at work.
Yeah.
Mine's not anything smart. But, well, they still can see in your house, even if you don't have anything smart. If you've got an LED light bulb, you've got the whole LiDAR thing, you've got all of it, so much of it. But it's what gets me, I don't recall. I think I have watched Judge Dredd, but I don't remember it well. But
the second one's the best. Don't watch the first one with Sly Stallone.
No, I think it's the new one I've seen, but it's the
Carl Urban, I think it is.
To me, it's the Hunger Games is the spot on. You've got the capital, which is utter excess decadence. It's all of that, and then you've got moving out to the different regions. And maybe that is the next stage that each 15-minute cities will be when they decide you don't need to duplicate all the infrastructure. Maybe each one will become responsible for a certain thing, whether that's energy production, whether that's whatever. And you will have the toadies that will do the capital's bidding. You will have the region 1 and district 1, district 2. That will be the police effectively for the capital. And then you will have the people that they don't give a fuck about over there somewhere. Your 50-minute is over there. It's not fantasy. It's not fiction. It's not far-fetched. And that is the problem. If we let them build the control grid, they will use it. It's all about it's to me, and I know this is my pet one, but to me it's a Sabutio player, because you don't need to have everybody on board. Iran doesn't need to be a part of this. If you can control Trump, if you can nudge Trump in the right direction so he threatens the energy infrastructure of Iran will hit back at other countries' energy infrastructure. You don't need to control Putin. If you can, and Zelensky, to me, that is the puppet. That's even the Sabutio. You can control Zelensky to use drones and use through Latvia and Lithuania and all of these places to send the drones at Russia's energy infrastructure. Then Russia will hit back at Ukraine's energy infrastructure.
I
You
am.
don't need to control the whole world. You just need to nudge here and nudge there.
Correct.
And that's how it is to me.
Yeah.
So any last thoughts for the audience, Kia? We're at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, it's been going on quite a while, so I'll make it short and sweet. It's been another interesting discussion, guys. Thanks again for having me on. I'll leave you with a quote, right? I've got a choice of two. So I think today I'll go for yesterday's weirdness is tomorrow's reason why. And that's from the late, great Hunter S. Thompson.
Good quote. Good quote. Yeah. It's okay looking down these dark alleys. It's all right, you know, projecting out and seeing where we're going. But if we don't actually do something to try and hinder, then that will be where we're going. You know, you get on a bus and you don't know where that's heading. Then you're just a passive passenger. And we need to stop being passengers and start influencing the driver. We need, or even take over the bus and take it where we want it to go. And that's the only way we will get out of this. We will never comply our way out of this tyranny. And I know that's an old saying, you can't comply with it, but it's a very true saying. I suppose that would be my last thought.
Yeah, and it is a very true saying. You can't comply your way out of tyranny. You can't vote your way out of tyranny. And if you're stupid enough to vote for racist fuckwits to do 100, 150 like Rupert Lowe, then I've got no time for you. You can only try to stop the control grid. If they get the control grid in, that is the end point. You can only try to do whatever you can to stop that control grid and keep your eye on what's going on with the geopolitics and with the war as well, because that's their perfect depopulation weapon, their perfect control grid forming weapon. We've run a bit late on this. I knew we would. That's probably my fault. But we will be back tonight at 8 p.m. with Last Jacobites International. We'll try and keep that one a bit shorter. I'll be back on Tuesday with Gleam in the North. Ian will be back on Wednesday with Smokem at 7 p.m. And Glenn will be back on Friday with The Man in Black at 7:30. Then we'll be back next Sunday afternoon with more from the Lone Gunman. Take care, and we will see you soon.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Good night. Stay there a second.